Advice and opinions expressed by the host of Autism Live and her guests are meant solely as suggestion and should not be in any way construed as child-specific advice. The Center for Autism and Related Disorders advises working with a board-certified behavior analyst who has experience with autism before starting any intensive behavioral intervention. Any choices you make in determining your child's treatment are completely at your own discretion.
Good morning and welcome to Autism Live. I'm Shannon Penrod and we're coming to you live right now from my house in Los Angeles. And thrilled to be here with you this morning. Got a big show for you with a wonderful guest that we're welcoming back to Autism Live. It's been a little while since we've had Alex Plank on the show. I don't know what's wrong with us, but it was high time that we remedy that. And Alex is going to be joining us in just a little while. And he's a good friend and a good friend to the show and someone that I'm sure that you will love hearing from. And Alex and I always say that Alex and I have this very interesting relationship where I totally respect Alex, and he sometimes will take me to task for different things and tell me he'll tell me, you know, when I've said something that he believes is ableist, and I learn from Alex all the time. On the other hand, I think that Alex, like, I don't know, like, I don't think Alex listens to me at all. We have that relationship that's like a much older sister and a younger brother where, you know, he's like, what? but I think that we have a really good friendship. But I think that I have more, he's going to take issue with this, but I think I have more respect for what he says to me than he has for what I say. And that's okay. That's exactly, you know, what our relationship is. So in any case, but we do have that kind of friendship where we can say things to each other and we frequently will discuss. And I love discourse, and I love arguing with somebody when you know that there is love. And that is exactly how Alex talks to me. So there we go. And I enjoy that. So in any case, we are going to be with you live for the next hour. And I hope that you will join us and join in the conversation, like dig in with Alex and I. And if you like to stir the pot, send in questions that you think will stir the pot, and we'll try to make the best of it. So there are lots of different ways to participate. Let's talk about what some of those are. Right now, we're live on YouTube. We are live on Facebook. We are live on Periscope, live on Twitter, and live on our homepage, which is autism-live.com. Now, later on, all of those places will still be running a recorded version of the show, and we will also podcast to iTunes, to Spotify, Deezer, and iHeartRadio. So how about that? And they are free, and we are free in all of those places, free downloads on iTunes, because we're here. You know, one of the things that I've been talking about a lot the last couple of days is intention. Our intention here is to give you information and inspiration. So it's not enough to just throw some ideas at you, right? We're hoping that we inspire you to do the things that you need to do for yourself to help you get to the next level. Now, when I say you, we are always talking to the larger autism community. This is, of course, individuals who are on the autism spectrum. We hope to be a resource and a place for information and inspiration for those individuals, but we also welcome the larger autism community, which is all the people who love someone on the spectrum, because I'm one of those people. And I want to make sure that my friends and family that are on the autism spectrum get the respect, the dignity, the opportunity, as my friend Joanne Laura would say, a seat at the table, a seat at the table. And that means employment and opportunities to love who you love. And that means the opportunity to live in a place that is safe and where you feel is your home. all of those things and many, many more. And so that's what we're here about on the show. And if you ever feel like your voice is not being heard on the show, please speak up, because that's exactly what we're trying not to create. I would love for all of you to feel that a part of your story is being told here on Autism Live. And if you don't feel like that's happening, please don't sit back. Write into us. Tell us what story you would like for us to be telling. We listen, and we're here for you. So we take those kinds of things on advisement. Now, I sort of mentioned this, but I always like to say that we have experts always on the show. And I count Alex Plank absolutely as an expert, and thrilled to have an opportunity to talk with him in a few minutes. I'm not an expert. I want to be abundantly clear. I'm just the facilitator here. My place in this community is that I am someone who loves folks on the autism spectrum. I had a son who was diagnosed at the age of 2.5, and he wasn't the first person with autism that I'd ever met, wasn't the first person with autism that I'd ever loved. But he was a conduit for me to learn about a lot of things that had never occurred to me before. And I'm still learning. I'm forever going to be a student. And it's important to me to be a good student, but it's also important for me to make sure that those of you who are looking for answers have a place to at least ask the questions. And then we will try to track down answers whenever we can. Sound good? You know what I always say, we get there together. We hold virtual hands and si se puede, right? Okay, so we like to start Tuesdays with something we fondly refer to as the jargon of the day. This is when we take on one word, one phrase, one acronym. We try to figure out what in the hey nani nani are the experts talking about, and why is this term something that we need to waste valuable time and energy to learn? Is this going to save me 5 minutes and $5? And if it is, can you explain it to me in a way that I understand it, so that I even have a reason to want to learn this jargon term? So yesterday's jargon term was DTT, discrete trial teaching. And we talked a little bit about how that's a tool in the toolbox for ABA, which stands for Applied Behavior Analysis. So today we're going to talk about NET, which is another tool in the toolbox. And we referenced it yesterday in saying that if you're doing a good ABA program, you really want to have a mix of both of these things. But this is much more popular with most people. So let's talk about that and why it is. So NET, our actual definition for NET, dun, da, da, da. I don't know, it's glitchy today. NET stands for Natural Environment Training, training and generalization of skills within the child's natural environment. So I don't think that's much to make fun of there, right? That's pretty self-explanatory, except that I don't know what it means. Right? I don't know what it looks like. It's so general that it's not going to help me. Let's move on to our working definition, and then we'll start to take this apart bolt by bolt. NET is using a child's world as their classroom. And I really like that definition. And I'm a big fan of NET. If you watched yesterday and saw me giving the plea for DTT, excuse me, one of the things that's most upsetting to me in the world is that there are people who are such big fans of NET. And by the way, it's not net, it's NET. They're such big fans of NET, and they like the way it looks, and they like the things that it garners. And I just the other day, a parent said, the truth of the matter is my child learns more through NET than they do through DTT. And I was like, are we sure that that's the case? Because imagine, the difference between these two. So DTT is that discrete trial teaching, which is very, it looks weird. It just looks weird. And it's now nobody's excited about it. I compared it yesterday to when you're learning to do the cha-cha, that there's a part when you're learning the cha-cha when you don't even have the music on, right? And you're learning, okay, and they maybe even have the footprints on the floor, and they're like, okay, so we're going to count. And you're going to go 1, 2, 3, 1, 2, 3. No, we're going to slow it down even more. 1, 2, 3, 1, 2, right? That is not the fun part of learning the cha-cha. But if you just throw somebody in and put the music on and go, okay, we're going to cha-cha, some people will be able to pick it up. But some people have 2 left feet and they're not going to be able to pick it up, right? So, but the fun part that we videotape is when the person can actually do it, right? And the music is playing and it's theirs now. And they're like, I am dancing the cha-cha, right? But if somebody has a hard time learning how to dance, we're probably going to start with the footprints on the floor. In fact, if you've ever been to a dance class, you walk into the studio and they don't start music right away and the footprints are on the floor. So the DTT is the part with the footprints and no music. And the NET is when we turn on the music and we start to play a little bit, right? So for our kids on the autism spectrum, if we're trying to teach a child anything, or a teenager or an adult, anything, right? If we're trying to teach somebody who isn't on the spectrum, even, right? If you're trying to teach me how to do quantum physics, well, I'm not going to be good at quantum physics, right? So you are not going to take me directly out into the world and have me, working at the NASA space station doing quantum physics. You're just not going to have me do that because or put me in a classroom with people of that caliber. I'm not going to learn it, right? But you're going to sit down maybe with a pen and a piece of paper and you're going to start to draw some things out for me as you explain, right? Same thing when we're trying to teach a child how to speak, for instance. Let's say that we're just trying to get a child to say the sound a vase, right? That's not even the best example. I'm trying to think of, let's say I'm trying to teach what a dog is. That's a much better one. So I've got a child who's on the autism spectrum and they've been around dogs and they didn't pick up the word dog or what the concept of a dog is. They're not really paying attention to it, right? But I want them to have this concept in their lives. So I may start at the table with a picture of a dog, because dogs, if I have a real dog there, it's going to lick them and we're going to get into a whole bunch of sensory things, right? Which I want to do eventually. But right now I just want to teach the concept of a dog. So I might have a picture of a dog, a drawing of a dog, and I set it on the table, or I might have a 3D figure and I set it on the table and I might say to the child, touch dog. And then help them and I go, yes, it's a dog. It's a dog. Yay, it's a dog, right? And we celebrate that. And then we might compare dogs to other things, right? But eventually, if we're really going to teach dog, we need to have it be a dog that's alive, that's there, that maybe first we point to it on the sidewalk and we go, what is it? And the child says, dog. And we go, yes, it's a dog, right? And then maybe we have we go to a place where maybe Aunt Beth has a dog in their house and we go, it's a dog. And we might even at that point call it a doggy, because sometimes people call it a doggy, right? And we would pet the doggy and talk about like dog has the tail and the dog has the ears, right? Some kids can learn just with NET, but a lot of our kids on the autism spectrum need the DTT first. And a lot of times parents go, well, I don't like the way the DTT looks. Nobody does. Just get over it. No, honestly, nobody likes the way it looks. Nobody wants you to end up doing the cha-cha with the little things on the floor either. Let's be honest. It's just a part of teaching till you can get to the NET. Now, if you are doing some sort of therapy that is only doing DTT and you're never getting to the good part where you're petting the dog and it's a real dog and they're saying dog in real life, then you're dealing with somebody who doesn't know what they're talking about. But little DTT in the beginning and NET to seal the deal, and then we're learning with all the pistons. So I love me some NET. I absolutely do, but I really love it when the child or the teenager or the adult has had some DTT beforehand, so that by the time they get to the NET, they can enjoy the moment. You turn on the music and you cha-cha, right? That's what I'm talking about, learning and cha-cha. So having said that, we have Alex Plank joining us, and he might already be with us. And Alex is amazing. He's, as it says, an autism advocate, an actor, a filmmaker, and he's the creator of wrongplanet.net. If you have not gone to wrongplanet.net in your life, I want to encourage you to go. And it doesn't matter if you're watching the show, it doesn't matter what your credentials are to be a part of this larger autism community, you should check out wrongplanet.net. It is, I think, the largest website for people who are on the autism spectrum. It's certainly the most favorite. And there are discussions there. If you are a parent, I think you will I think you will find it completely eye-opening. If you are a therapist or a caregiver or a teacher, I think you will be blown away. But if you are a person who's on the autism spectrum, I think you will find that I've heard from people, it's like finding home, finding a group of like-minded people and seeing that who and how you are is exactly who and how you should be. And that some of the difficulties that may arise from, as I was saying at the beginning of the show, ableist thinking, which heaven knows I have been guilty of, that you will find a home at wrongplanet.net where you are able to feel the kinship of other people who agree with you that this is not something that's wrong with you. And anyway, I don't know if Alex hasn't joined us yet, and I might have told him a smidge later. I might be a little bit early, but I do want to say that, excuse me, Alex started wrongplanet.net when I think he was 17 years old, because he wasn't finding a place where he could go, where he could learn the things that he wanted to learn from other people in the community that he was fairly certain existed. And boy, he was absolutely right. I love to tell that story because I think, well, I'm a 17-year-old, right? And I think sometimes, we were just talking about this with Temple Grandin last week about finding your child's passion and feeding your child's passion. And I think Alex is such a driven individual, and he's so smart, and he's, he's just not somebody who's going to sit by. He's not passive about things. And so you totally can see, even though he's not 17 anymore, you can totally see where as a 17-year-old, he would have been like, yeah, no, I can do that. And I'm going to do that. And he did, you know what I mean? He's that kind of an individual. But I also want to give some kudos and props to his parents, because I do know people who would say to their 17-year-old, well, let's wait until you're out of college, right? Or like, well, maybe somebody else will create that website. And I think we all need to be really careful about that and make sure that we are giving our kids the tools that they need. I will tell you that when my son was 6, he wanted to make a movie. He wanted to make a movie, and in the worst way, and he kept talking about it, but he wanted to make the movie at a friend's house. And the things that he needed for it were things that I couldn't, like there needed to be a ghost that flew through this 2nd-story hallway. And I was like, well, honey, we're going to have to wait for that. I regret that. I regret that we didn't shoot that movie and figure it out. I'm going to regret that till the cows come home. And I want to say to you, if you've got a kiddo who wants to build the Taj Mahal, get them some wood. You know what I'm saying? Saying hi to Blessy, and saying hi to Alexis. So glad to have you here. And somebody wrote in and said, my son is 12 years old. I don't think we have Alex yet. I think I'm early. He is over social, fear of strangers, friendly with everyone, and sometimes stares at them very closely. How can I work on it? I don't think that that's entirely uncommon. I hate this sort of one size fits all thing that people say, oh, well, people on the autism spectrum aren't social, which just isn't true. It's just so untrue. It's just that sometimes the way they socialize isn't the stereotypical way that, a group of people decided was the way to socialize, right? And, I hate it when they say that there's no empathy, because nothing could be further from the truth. And by the way, everybody is different, So in any case, how do you work on it when someone is over social and doesn't have any fear of strangers? Well, I will tell you that we talk a lot about Skills here on the show, and Skills is an online tool. And you can go to Skills for Autism, FOR autism.com, to learn more about it. But there's a lot to it, and you don't need all of it. No one does in any given moment, right? There's an assessment that you can take to learn about where the individual is and where they're behind and where their strengths are, right? But there are also lessons. And if you already know what lesson your child needs to learn, you don't necessarily have to do the assessment. If you don't know what lesson they need, then the assessment is a great investment in time. But one of the lessons that is in there, there's a whole curriculum that's about social things. And within that, there's a social language curriculum, but there's several other things within social. And one of the things that's in there, I believe it's in the social curriculum, it might be in cognition, but it's called levels of friendship. And it defines for kids, just like if you were to slice open a tree and see all the rings in a tree, that, we all have friends in our lives, right? But we have people that we're super close to. There's like people who we could walk into their houses without knocking, right? But that's not everyone. So it really helps them to define, who are your closest friends and what are the rules with those friends? And then, what's the next thing out? Okay, those people are still friends, but the rules are different with that group of friends. And then the next group out, and what are the rules? And you list the people that are in that category to help them to understand those relationships until you get to, the further out rings, which are, people like workers in the store that, they're people that you can ask for help. And how do we identify them? But they're not really friends, right? But they're not totally strangers. So you keep building out these rings and have rules with each one of the rings. It's really, I found it to be a really amazing lesson when we were working on it with my son, because it helped me. It helped me because one of the lessons that we learn in the levels of friendship is that there's a certain reciprocity. So one of the lessons that was being taught to my son about levels of friendship was there was a little boy in his class who every day on the playground kept taking, until I found out about this, he had the little cords on his hood, my son did, and the other boy kept taking them and trying to strangle my son with them. And once the aide told me that that's what was happening, I cut the cords so that that was not a possibility, right? But they were talking with my son about, what do you do when a friend is trying to hurt you? Well, you say, friend, you're hurting me, please stop. And what happens when that friend doesn't? Well, then they're not following the rules of this level of friendship, which means they're not really a friend. There's someone who's, out here saying that they care about you, but if somebody's trying to hurt you, this doesn't fit with this rule of friendship. And I remember when they were teaching this to my son that I realized, oh, some of the people that I count as friends are not friends. They're trying to hurt me. And I've asked them not to, and they're still doing it. And that doesn't mean you're not friends at all. It just moves that person to a different level of friendship. So I highly recommend it, skillsforautism.com. And there's a million bazillion other lessons in there too. But that one in particular is, I just think, so useful for all of us. But then, you want to make sure, because I think our kids, one of the things that they are super good, most of them at, is understanding rules and rule governed behavior. The problem is that the rules change, right? And what I love about this lesson, the levels of friendship, is that it explains, oh, well, with this level of friendship, here are the rules. With this level, here are the rules, right? So you make sure that whenever something's happening, like, you're walking across the street and the crossing guard is helping you to get across the street, and you say, so is the crossing guard a friend? What are the rules for the friendship with the crossing guard? Like, we don't hug the crossing guard, right? And you go over them wherever you are. And that NET that we were talking about, where the world is your child's classroom. So, you're on the playground and they meet a kid for the first time, and we just met them, so they're a friend, but we don't know what level of friendship they are yet, right? That sometimes, that takes time to figure out. And this is a lesson that you can start fairly early. It probably has some prerequisites in it, but it will tell you what the prerequisites are. Alex is here. That's perfect timing. I hope that helps you with your child, because I know my son used to walk into any room and sit down in anybody's lap. He obviously doesn't do that anymore. Hey, Alex.
Hello.
How are you?
Good. How's it going?
Good. I'm really thrilled that you're here this morning, and I said some very lovely things about you before you were here.
That's
And
good.
we took a question from an audience member, but thrilled that you are here. And I talked a little bit about wrongplanet.net, and we encourage people to go and check it out
Cool.
to see all the amazing things that are there. I'm not sure where to start today, but let's start with how are you doing during this time of isolation, and how's it going for you?
Good.
Yeah.
Just trying to get things done.
Yeah.
And various things.
What's the hardest part of this period of time for you?
Just like I normally have more of a structure of things to do. So like even like simple things like, oh, I need to get some bill paid. Like normally I'd be like, well, I better pay it now because I've got to go do something in like an hour. So, but now I'm just like, oh, I'll just do it eventually.
Yeah. So
I mean, it's too much time.
Yeah, it's unstructured time. I think we've all had a little bit of difficulty with that. It's like hard to, if we're used to a routine, it's hard to, but what have you done for yourself to help with that? Have you been able to change that at all?
Well, just going on, I like to go on bike rides and walks and various other things to.
Now you're a very social person, Alex. Has it been hard for you to keep up your social life with all this going on? Or are you managing that?
Well, I mean, I don't know. I'm not really good at social life when there aren't things to go to, So
that's it. So interesting that you would say, because my perception of you is that you are very social and very good at social things.
Well, I mean, yeah, but there aren't any social gatherings or events. So, right. What is there to do? Right. I mean, I call people, talk to them, but, that's not the same, is it?
I feel so badly for many different groups during this isolation, but I think the group that I feel the most for is young people like yourselves who are in the prime of your life and normally are out doing things with friends and dating and doing all these other things. Yeah. And that's a large part of your life that's just been taken away. I'm old and married, so for me, this is kind of great. I get all this time with my husband, but for someone who's young like yourself, I imagine it's like not the most fun.
Yeah, it's just, there's not really much to do. And yeah, there's not really anyone here, so.
But you're a highly creative person. Yes, you do have your dog. Can we say hi to Max?
I guess. Max, come here. Come here. Good boy.
And if he doesn't want to, it's okay. It's just, he's such a beautiful dog.
What's up? Good boy. What's up? Up. Good boy.
There's Max. Oh, he's grown up since the last time I saw him. And so look at those beautiful ears, Max.
Yeah, so he's
gorgeous. And so how long have you had Max?
Did anyone get to see him? Because
yeah, we could see him. We saw from like his shoulders up.
Yeah. Okay. Good.
Yeah. So how long have you had Max now, Alex?
Like almost, I don't know, like 9 months maybe.
Yeah. And what made you decide? And what is he considered? Is he considered a companion dog, or what is he considered?
A service dog.
Service dog.
Yeah.
And so. What made you decide at this point in your life to get a service dog?
Well, I've always wanted one, but I never had the. Well, they're really expensive, so.
Yeah, there's that. Plus, it's a little bit of a time commitment, especially in the beginning, right? Because you have to pair with your dog and
yeah,
be able
you gotta
to
like
each other.
Yeah. They take a lot of work.
Yeah. Have you enjoyed working with him though?
Yeah, and it's good to have him now, because then I at least have, someone. I guess it's a dog, but better than nothing.
And they say that dogs are social lubricants, that even if we're shy, but there's a dog, then we can have a conversation about the dog. Do you find that you're more approachable?
Probably, although he's
with
kind of
Max?
like intimidating looking. Because he's the kind of dog that, goes up and like, the police used to, attack people. Like, when you climb the fence, so, the White House, like that's the dog the dogs that they send that they sick on you.
He's a German Shepherd, right?
Yeah.
Yeah. So they can be pretty intimidating. Now, I've been terrified of German Shepherds in my life because I watched my baby brother get bit by a German Shepherd when we were little, but I'm not afraid of Max. Max is just the sweetest.
Yeah, he's never bit anyone.
Oh, he's so sweet.
But he's got the pointy ears and.
But I've been at least one event with Max where there were other people who had dogs that were not properly. Well, we don't know if they were dogs that were service dogs, but they were being passed off as service dogs. And I watched as somebody was trying to give you some grief about Max when Max is legal. And, is it frustrating for you when people have dogs that they're passing off as service dogs when they're not?
I don't know. I mean, for the most part, they don't really bother my dog. I mean, if they're, I don't see any, it doesn't really bother me. I don't care. I mean, they bark at him.
Yeah, but he's so well behaved.
Like, I went to Target before this whole lockdown, I remember, and there was this dog and it was just like barking nonstop, but we were just walking past it, so it didn't really bother me.
There you go.
I mean, it happens at the grocery store too. It's funny because it's like if they have them in the purse. Normally they just hide their dog in the purse. They're not really passing it off as a service dog. I feel like even if they are passing it off as a service dog, they just say it's a service dog. They don't like buy, they don't like buy like a bunch of stuff that says service dog and put it on the dog because because.
Yeah.
But, even then, who knows, maybe it is a service dog that just forgot its training or something.
Might be. But now at this point, you've flown with Max too, haven't you? What was that like?
Yeah, we fly all the time. I mean, not right now, but, we were flying all the time. So it's pretty good. We just have to get on the airplane. The hardest part is when you fly to other countries because it's like you have to like prove all this stuff, like especially because they're like, oh, they just want to make sure no one's coming into their country with like, I don't know. It's weird. It was like going to London, for instance, like they, it was like a ton of paperwork and you had to get all these stamps and like, not just the vaccine stuff and like, to make sure that the dog had all the vaccines it needed, but there's all these other, they just want to make sure it's like a service dog or, it's really annoying.
Now, but does he get to be on the plane with you? Like, does he get his own seat? Do you have to pay for a second seat?
He doesn't sit on a seat. He's a dog. He lies on the ground.
So, yeah, but he takes up space. So I would think he sits on the floor in the aisle. Where does he sit?
Let me see if I have any pictures, but like, I don't know. He sits on the ground in the.
Like, what are you at the bulkhead where there's a little bit more leg room?
Oh yeah, I always sit in the front row.
Got it.
So like let me see if I have any pictures of that.
And like, what happens if the person sitting next to you is allergic to the dog? Then they just move them.
Well, yeah, I mean, they just find someone else that isn't allergic to dog. I mean, normally though ideally I wouldn't have anyone sitting next to me, but yeah, sometimes if they're allergic to a dog, they would just move to a different area, I guess.
You've never had that kind of problem though?
Have I ever had that kind? No, I mean, I saw someone else said that they're afraid of dogs, but they were sitting next to some other dog. I don't think it was a service dog though. I think it was just like a pet in a box or something.
Got it. So you started to say before you're trying to get some stuff done, and I know that you're this highly creative person who's constantly doing things and creating, and you have gotten some stuff done during this isolation.
Just various, I'm just, trying to write my own projects and like, nothing that I, want to talk about, but I've also been, just trying to, do various, I don't know, like auditioning for things that are out there. Like, you know, but the problem is there's not much going on. So it's like sort of hard, you know?
But you arranged a gathering, a protest. What was it? The flashlight.
Oh yeah, I did like a flashlight protest that the news came and covered.
That. Talk about that.
You know, we just had the neighborhood people showing flashlights in the air, you know, in sort of remembrance of George Floyd, you know, with everything that's going on. I thought that was a cool thing, and the NBC came and covered it.
And why flashlights?
Well, that's my special interest, but that's like other people were doing it too. Like, you know, I didn't come up with the idea, so.
But that is your special interest.
Yeah.
Usually you
I've got tons of flashlights. Well, I've shown you a lot of flashlights. I don't have any.
That's okay. You don't have to show us any. Usually you show us at least one flashlight.
Yeah.
For people who don't understand, when you say special interest, what do you mean by that?
Why do people not understand what a special interest is on your show?
I think that there are some people who don't get it. I got to be honest, Alex, that I think that, you know, I think one of the overall comments that sometimes parents will make is that they'll be concerned that their child they'll say that they're stuck on something or they perseverate on something. And they think it's something that they have to be worried about. But you're talking about it in the special interest category, and maybe shed a little bit of light on that so that parents aren't worried about.
Was that a flashlight joke?
No.
Oh, you said shed a little light on it.
That was unintentional, but I'm glad that you caught that.
Well, you know, I think that it's important to foster your kids' special interests and to allow them to focus on those things, because those things can become careers or become things, and plus it gives people joy. You know, a lot of people try to get them to stop.
How old were you when flashlights?
Just recently. I mean, I have like various different special interests. They come and go, or not really go, but you know, some I'll get a new one that's more of my special interest for the moment.
Well, and I think like anything, I think it's important for us to realize that we all have things that go in and out, that we go, okay, I'm really interested in this right now. I have a friend whose son got really interested in Poland for an entire year. Like, he couldn't get enough researching about Poland and everything about Poland. And eventually he moved on to another country, but I loved that mom got into it with him, and then they went to Poland. Instead of being like, why is he stuck on Poland? Why not be stuck on Poland? I like it when we look at those things as positive. And as you said, sometimes it becomes the thing that you go. Now, you didn't turn flashlights into a career.
No.
But you don't have to. It's just something that you got passionate about.
I mean, you know, people have hobbies in general. It's oftentimes I think it's important to engage with whatever you're passionate about.
But what would you say to a parent who's worried because their 14-year-old is still interested in Thomas the Tank Engine?
I don't know. I mean, why are they worried about Thomas the Tank Engine?
I think that's the right.
I mean, it's
question.
not. Is there like a controversy surrounding Thomas the Tank Engine that I wasn't aware of?
No, not at all. It's just that sometimes parents get concerned that their teenager is still interested in something that's a 5-year-old toy.
Is it for 5-year-olds? I always thought Thomas the Tank Engine was for like various ages.
Well, I think that trains, I mean, you know, Mandy Patinkin is a train aficionado and has an entire building where he has built out a train set. And you know, he's older than I am. So I think it can be for people of all age.
I mean, Thomas the Tank Engine, though, I guess the show is not really that geared towards adults, but you know, trains, lots of adults are into trains. Elevators is a big thing. I find that fascinating.
Was that ever a thing for you, elevators?
I mean, in the sense that I appreciate it, I do find the whole idea of being obsessed with elevators sort of entertaining to me. I like watching the videos of the guys that are, you know, obsessed with them.
it.
There's like one guy that has like millions of followers or some ridiculous amount of followers on YouTube, subscribers, and like, you know, they go around and like go on elevators, and he has like his own elevator museum.
I love it.
With like parts of elevators, you know, and
That's
they'll ride
fascinating.
elevators everywhere and just be, you can tell how excited they are about them.
Was
So,
there anything when you were a kid that you just were really focused on that your mom or dad was worried about?
worried about?
Yeah. Or were they just cool about it?
Yeah, they were pretty cool about all the things. You know, they wanted me to get my work done and stuff, but you know, for the most part, they supported everything I did. I think that's part of, you know, why I'm successful and well balanced life. And
Yeah. Even amongst this isolation period, we had several people who were writing in and saying, hi, Alex and Max, and so nice to meet you. And they said, what a great idea for a protest. Somebody said, my son
as I said, it wasn't my idea. Someone else posted it, and I was like, okay, I'll do that. And then the news came and filmed it. They did it at Dodger Stadium too. They shined like, you know, searchlights into the air.
But you organized the one that was in your area.
Neighborhood, yeah, but
yeah. Well, we'll take the compliment.
Yeah, but they said good idea. I was like, well, it's not my idea.
Okay, but it is a good idea. Not necessarily yours, but it's a good idea. And they somebody says that their child loves flashlights. So what else are you particularly into right now?
Well, you know, I've been trying to get. I was wearing masks before people, and everyone was always. So I had researched masks and like their efficacy of like preventing viruses and stuff. And so like I had been wearing one before we even had a lockdown in like, you know, the beginning of March, before it even people were like, oh, and that was when they were saying they don't work. And I was like, how could they not work? It's a mask on your face. Like, well, I mean, maybe it like doesn't work as well as not going out at all, but like it has to do something. It's literally like something in between your face and like the other person's face. That's, you know what I mean? It's like, that's like saying if you hang up a curtain and someone sneezes, that like that it's more like, do you really think that's less likely that you're, you know what I mean? Like, I didn't get it. So like I've been, and then they kept saying it on the news too. Like, oh, they don't work unless you're a doctor. And I was like, well, if you're a doctor, you're also a human. Like,
yeah.
Like, how would it not work? How would it work on a doctor is not like a different type of human. It's like just a job. Like, so like.
I'm right there with you, Alex. I thought the same thing. I was like, that's preposterous. Yeah. But do you have your mask there with you? Can you show us?
I can show you the various ones. Let me, hold on.
Oh, you've got more than one? Because you've got one that's pretty intense. But I tried to order it. I can't order it. It's not available anymore. You made it so popular, Alex, that everybody wants it. All right. Let's take a look.
Are you there?
I'm here. So what you got? We got to see Max again.
This is a respirator.
And so
it's got these filters called P100.
Yeah. And you can't get those now. I tried to get one. I couldn't get one.
You yeah, you can. I mean, maybe you can't. I don't know. Like, you can get them somehow.
I must not know the right people, or I'm looking up the wrong thing. I mean, and so you can change out the filters.
Yeah. See, these are just P100 filters. So these will pretty much, you can still like, this will filter out particles. 99 point, that's the 100 stands for 100% of particles, but it's really 99.97%. You know, and then they just round up. But you know, you take the filter off, and then you can put on another one.
And what does that one do?
It also is they're color coded, so it also is a P100, but it also filters out organic vapors.
So for instance, if you were in
acid gas.
So if you were in a tear gas situation,
Yeah,
that would
probably
take care
would
of COVID and
filter
tear
out
gas.
most tear gas. They do have like specifically ones made for tear gas, but I think that this would filter out anything that's organic. So I guess anything that has like carbon in it.
Now I'm curious,
and also
because
a lot of different very like acid gases. So like it would also filter out probably I believe be like mixed. You know how they say don't mix bleach and ammonia or
yeah,
whatever.
yeah.
I bet I
Yeah.
probably could mix bleach and ammonia and not die.
Well, let's not try it though. Just for,
Right. I mean, I
fun,
I would
let's
have to check. I forget what specific gases it filters out. I would have to look. But the nice
So
thing is
don't
it also
anybody try
you
this
can't
at home.
really smell anything. That's like
Oh,
when you
really?
wear that one.
Well, sometimes that's good. But I'm curious, now you wear glasses, and so did you choose one that did not cover the eyes because of that? Have you had issues with fogging on your glasses?
The not cover the eyes. What do you mean fogging on my
So
glasses?
there are some of those respirators that come up and they cover your eyes as well. They have like goggles.
Right.
But yours is just the face thing. Now, did you do that because you wear glasses or not?
Well, yeah, but I mean also because you know the I have goggles. You could wear goggles too, but I mean glasses are not entirely without protection. If someone sneezes and it hits the glass, then it's not going to hit my eye, because you could also get infected with the eyes. But I don't. You can't really get any. You can't get fog. You shouldn't be. Your glasses shouldn't fog up if you're wearing a mask. Unless your mask is like, you know, this one kind of does, but like the surgical mask sort of, because it's, but if you use the little nose bridge and like make sure like it's like really like stuck to your nose, like because it has like wire in them. If you have just like a standard like piece of cloth, or like just wrap something around, that'll probably fog it up, because the fog is coming from your air from your mouth, like going up and hitting the like moist air. And then the other one, which is the one that they were like, that the doctors wear, is these N95s. But I only have 2 of those because, and they're like,
you can't get them anymore.
And they're like not like as good because they don't seal as well. And also they only filter out 95% of the particles, whereas this one filters out 100% basically.
They should have you do a guest spot for them, because you're a good salesperson for that other one, but hard to find. I wasn't able to find it because you talked to me about it and I wanted to get one of those for my son and I couldn't get one.
Well, the problem with I mean, but the nice thing about these is that that they're reusable. So you could basically use this for a year without needing to like replace it. You can, because you can take off the filters themselves and wash them.
And it's hard. So you could wash the other part as well.
Yeah, it's like a elastomeric or whatever, like, it's like a material. So
like neoprene.
Wash it with soap and water.
Yeah.
And it dries pretty quick.
Very cool.
But yeah,
when you're out with a mask, do people react to the mask?
Not really. I mean, people, I think people have seen other people wearing that kind of mask, like, you know what I mean? Like, it's not like, I mean, it's not that much of a difference from like wearing a surgical mask in a way. I mean, it just looks a little bigger. And
well, different parts of the world, people are wearing masks versus other places. Like I here in my neighborhood, I would say it's like a 50-50 proposition.
Yeah, 50%. I mean, but the thing about the mask is it's not, if you're walking around outside in like a neighborhood where there aren't that many people, it's not like gonna do as much as if you were like needed to walk inside of like a store.
Yeah.
You know what I mean? Like, I mean,
you live in a more populated area than I do.
Yeah, but even then it's like,
are most people wearing masks though, Alex, where you are?
I don't know.
Or is it like my neighborhood, 50-50?
Outside, maybe not, but like I think the main use of them is when you're walking around and like I would say if you're like walking down like if I were in New York City, I would imagine that would be more important. But like, I'm not as concerned about that. And then also the other thing is that people seem to think that they don't protect you; they only protect other people from you, even though they just probably protect you less if you're wearing one of those other ones. Like the cloth on your face is probably not going to do as much for you as this, but this one will definitely protect you. Like
now, did you have, when you first started wearing the mask, we have a lot of people writing in saying that they're having a lot of problems, either themselves or their kids, wearing a mask because of sensory issues. Did you have any issues with that?
I mean, like the thing about it is that like if it's covering, like, I don't know, I guess the sensory issue is, well, yeah, I mean, they're not very comfortable, but I also don't think it's a good idea to just wear it like too long, you know?
Yeah.
Or too, because it also, the problem with them is like, if most masks like that, like these, like most just regular face masks don't have any sort of like exhalation valve, so they'll end up getting like a ton of humidity in it, and like then you start, you know, and either way, if it's hot out, you're going to be sweating. So yeah, it bothers you, but like if you're like walking around where there's no one else, that's, you know, I would take it off.
And then what about the beard and the mustache? Does that make it harder to get the seal on the mask, or is it make it hotter?
Yeah, I mean, it's like I mean, keep in mind though that like for the most part, like you can check on these, you can check if the seal is good.
Yeah.
Because you can take it off and like cover the things. And if you breathe in and if you don't get any air, you know it's sealed. Right. Whereas the other mask, you can't really tell entirely. There's 100%. So you can't really seal a mask if you have a beard though. Like even that one, it's like a little bit of leakage. But I mean, how much is there really? Right. You know what I mean? Like you still aren't getting much air going. Most of the air is going through the filters.
Yeah.
You know, like there might be like it's kind of like if you have like a tiny little like leak in your window, like and you have the air conditioner on, like it's not like all the air. It's gonna still be cold in your house. You know what I mean? Like it just might be. Yeah, I mean, yeah, technically you could get some but even then it's like 100. Like I don't know. It doesn't have to be perfect to prevent. Obviously, if because that was the other thing when they first came out. They're like, oh yeah, you won't know how to wear it right. Like it has to be seal check. Like you have to check the seals. You have to like all the doctors know how to do that. I'm like, it's a mask. You know, it's not like they're flying a 757, right? Like it's like how much training do you really need? I mean, yeah, put it over your nose and your mouth and like,
right.
But even if you don't do it right, it's not like it's still better than nothing. Right? Like, I mean, maybe a little bit of air. Most of the doctors I've seen don't even are probably not wearing it right anyway either.
There you go.
You know what I mean?
I can't believe it. We're out of time already. Okay. But we want people to know about wrongplanet.net. Is there anything in particular that you guys are doing that you want them to know about to visit on the site?
Nothing right now. But you know, just check it out, and everyone should stay safe and you know, wear their mask because it's important. Even if you have a sensory issue. Also, just don't go. If you don't need to go somewhere, don't go anywhere. I've been ordering all my groceries online.
Me too. Me too. And I can't believe we've got less than a minute left, but I haven't asked you this before because I know that you were a good friend of Joanne Lara, and she really loved you.
Yeah.
And I know that we're all sad, and there's a memorial for her on Saturday. Is there anything that you wanted to say about?
Well, I just really, I tweeted about it when it happened. I was just really upset, and you know, I really loved her, and she was really
loved you.
Yeah, you know, so it was really tragic.
Yeah. But we'll remember her, and there is a memorial on Saturday that everyone is invited to. Everyone. We have on our website right now, Autism Live, there's a link that you can register so that you're all set to go on Saturday morning to attend it's a virtual memorial because it's all we can do. Are you able to come to the virtual memorial?
Sure. Yeah, for sure.
We'll see you there. All right, Alex, we just love you, and I'm so glad that I missed you in this isolation.
Yeah, so it's a hard thing, I think, and I just, you know, I feel, I guess it's true, you know, where, you know, it's especially our age group, it's like, you know, the prime of your life, so it's kind of annoying.
Yeah. Yeah, and I hope for all of our sake that we get a solution soon so that you guys can go back to the business of leading your lives.
Yeah.
Because that's what you deserve. Anyway, I adore you, Alex, and thank you so much for being here with us.
Thanks.
Everybody, check out wrongplanet.net. We're done here for now, but I want to remind everybody to join us tomorrow for Ask Dr. Doreen. Dr. Doreen Granpeesheh will be with us.
Right.
And give your kiddos a hug from me, one for
Bye.
you too. Bye-bye. Bye, Alex. Bye-bye for now.
The advice and opinions expressed by the host of Autism Live and her guests are meant solely as suggestion and should not be in any way construed as child-specific advice. The Center for Autism and Related Disorders advises working with a board-certified behavior analyst who has experience with autism before starting any intensive behavioral intervention. Any choices you make in determining your child's treatment are completely at your own discretion.
Good morning and welcome to Autism Live. I'm Shannon Penrod and I am here with the fabulous Dr. Doreen Granpeesheh. We're so excited. It's Wednesday and we have Dr. Granpeesheh here with us. She's going to be answering your questions. Good morning, Dr. Granpeesheh.
Good morning, Shannon. Lovely to be here again.
I'm so glad to have you here. It always brightens my day. I want to remind everybody that we're going to be live with you for the next hour and that this hour is meant to be interactive. We want to hear from you. We want to know your thoughts, your feelings, your questions, your concerns, whatever you've got, send it over our way. And there's lots of different ways to connect with us and to get your voice heard. You can watch us. We're live right now on Twitter, on Periscope, on YouTube, and we're also live on our homepage, which is autism-live.com, and we are live on Facebook. Now, later on, this will be podcast in a couple of different places. You can watch us as a free download on iTunes, either picture and sound or just sound. If you want to take us on your hike, on your morning hike, you can absolutely do that. We are also sound only on Spotify, iHeartRadio, and Deezer. I also want to let you guys know that some of you may not realize that on Saturdays, we do what we call the marathon, where all of the shows from the week play on Saturday, and they don't just play once, they play twice. So that's really wonderful, and we're enjoying, if you're watching us on Saturday, you're watching the marathon, and that's a really cool thing. Thanks to Traven for making that happen. I mentioned autism-live.com is our homepage, and when you go there, there is an anonymous chat. If you're like, oh, I'd like to put a question on Facebook, but I don't want everybody to know my business. I had a friend who used to say, I don't want to put my business on the streets, right? So if you want to be anonymous, go over to autism-live.com. There's a chat button at the bottom of the page, and you can chat with us there. It shows up here on my iPad. So that's the deal. Now, also, Dr. Doreen Granpeesheh is an amazing expert, I believe the preeminent expert in the field of autism. And she is graciously giving us her time so that we can ask questions. But I want to point out that there is no expert who could give individual specific advice in this format. So that's not what she's going to do. Please write in as specifically as you can about what's happening, give her lots of details. And also let her and I know what the closest major city is so that we might have a better idea about what resources might be available. But understand that the information she's going to give you is general in nature because she doesn't have eyes on the situation. And it would be like disrespect to assume that she could know everything without having eyes on the situation. But she will help you to get information so that you can go back to the expert who does have eyes on the situation and have more questions to ask, better questions to ask, and more information to be checking out. And I know that you guys love that because you write in and say all the time how helpful it is to you. So Dr. Granpeesheh, thank you for that. And thank you for being here. And I haven't given you a chance to say anything. Did you want to say anything?
No, that's all right. I just thank you. And it's always a pleasure to be here. And I look forward to answering questions.
Well, I'm going to jump right into questions then, if that's okay. So the first question I have is, hi, my son is 15 years old with autism, is verbal, and has a learning disability, is very sensitive to how people speak to him. And at times he thinks he's being told off when he actually isn't. Even if someone accidentally knocks against him or he knocks against them, his immediate response is to hit out. Have you any suggestions how I can help him to stop reacting like this? And thank you.
Yeah, so I remember dealing with stuff like this many, many years ago. It was when I started to realize that, you know, we tend to just think of our kids as being so different that we think there's got to be a different reason for it. And realistically, if you just take his exact situation, you can easily just see things from his perspective. I think it starts to make a lot of sense. We tend to overreact and get frustrated when we don't have a full understanding of what's going on. And I think in his case as well, it's a matter of just understanding the things that are going on around him better. I remember the first lesson that I wrote about something similar to this was a child who parent came to me and said that their child got very, very upset and had a major meltdown in school when another child accidentally kicked over their backpack. And it occurred to me that a lot of our kids don't understand the difference between intentionality and accident, right? Something happening by accident as opposed to intentions. And that actually led to a whole series of lessons that we wrote on the subject, because it also then led us to the whole path of our kids recognizing when someone is laughing with them as opposed to at them, all of that. And then this brought us back full circle, Shannon, to the realization that it all has to do with theory of mind. So, you know, for the viewers, theory of mind again is the idea that a lot of our individuals who are diagnosed with autism have a hard time understanding that their mind is separate from the mind of other people. And if you have separate minds, then that mind, someone else's mind, can think things completely differently and perceive things and just have their own universe of thought as your mind. And so this then shows in multiple different areas. For example, in this particular situation that you're talking about, when a child doesn't realize that other people have different intentions, they will always just go with what they think is the primary intention. And often that primary intention is not really the case, right? So it's not so much about dealing with the scenario that the parent describes, like, you know, if something touches them, they fly off the handle. It's not so much about dealing with that particular scenario. It's about teaching the individual the whole concept of other people's minds, other people's perspectives, other people's thoughts, other people's intentions, other people's beliefs. And we have a whole curriculum area, not just a few lessons, but we have an entire curriculum area just focused on this concept. And it is called our cognitive curriculum, Cognition. So when you go to Skills for Autism, which I recommend for everyone because it's a really good curriculum out there, you should look in the Cognition curriculum. And that entire section has to do with teaching our kids how to see the world from someone else's perspective. And that, believe me, will help not only this particular scenario, but as a whole, it'll help your child be able to change perspectives. And when you're able to change perspectives, it just helps you in a million different ways. In social behavior, it's a very vital part of social behavior, as well as many different areas.
And I just want to address a couple of quick things here that somebody wrote in and said, is this live or recorded? Have I heard this question before? And I want to say it is absolutely live. It is June 24th on Wednesday morning, absolutely live. But you're so on it because this question came in last week. And so I read the question and said we would wait. I talked a little bit about how my son went through this phase, but I said we would wait and hear from an expert. So you are not imagining that you heard this question before because it came in on Thursday. Also saying hello to Christina, and we're saying hello to Michelle. We're saying hello to Anyanyi, I hope I'm saying that right, to Laura and to Nasser. And so thrilled that everybody is here and starting to write in. Also, because Dr. Granpeesheh mentioned skills, want to make sure everybody knows skillsforautism.com, but it alerted me to the fact that I also want to give you guys the 411 on what's happening with IBT. And I'm going to get that email up because IBT, which is the Institute for Behavioral Training, has free trainings available that they're giving away during COVID. And they've already given away, each week there are different videos. They've given away ones that for parents, but this week they want to give you access to ones that are meant for educators. And I think that that's a great idea for a bunch of different reasons, because I always say that when it's time for Teacher Appreciation Week to give them IBT trainings, because it's the gift that keeps on giving. Not only is it less expensive than any other teacher gift you could give, but it will help your teacher to see that you're helping them. And if you have a good teacher, teachers like to learn, right? It will help them to run their classroom in a way that's better for your child, but for every child who comes after your child. So it's a really great thing. I'm going to bring that up in a little while, all the different ones that are available this week that are free, but you can go to ibehavioraltraining.com to check out all of the things that they have. Please make sure if you go to skillsforautism.com, and I should already have this email up. I'm talking about it and don't have the email up. But when you talk to the folks at Skills, if you go to skillsforautism.com, if you call them, make sure that you tell them you're friends with me, ask for the friends and family discount, you will get 10% off. We love, love, love that. Okay, now I've completely morphed up my computer where everything is, Dr. Granpeesheh. So I can't walk, talk, and chew gum at the same time. Okay, here we go. So next question, and while you're answering this, I will bring up the other email about the Institute for Behavioral Training. The question right now is, we've just started therapy and we're doing a combination of telehealth and in-home therapy. What's the difference between this and being in the center? Great question. Glad you asked it.
Very good question. And it's going to be different answers for different people. But here is how I see the difference. almost everyone can be okay with telehealth supervision. Pretty much it doesn't really matter, and parent training as well. I mean, we used to train people on with the use of video when there was no such thing as Zoom or Adobe. And so a telehealth parent training and supervision, no problem at all. For other kids, for kids who are a little bit more affected, so it's hard for them to sit in front of a monitor for a variety of reasons, telehealth therapy will be a little bit difficult because the child will have much shorter sessions, will not necessarily, it'll be possible for the child to escape, right, and avoid. So it'll become very difficult. And also keep in mind, the delivery of reinforcers are limited on the screen. And the whole concept of ABA has to do with reinforcer delivery. So if I'm not able to, after a while, if what I'm showing on the screen becomes not rewarding enough, I don't have a lot of options. So these are the limitations with telehealth. Having said that, there's positives as well. I mean, if I'm working with a higher functioning individual who prefers privacy, then telehealth might afford more privacy. Or if I'm working with individuals who are very visual in nature, then the screen might offer more visual prompting. So those are the positives. In-home therapy is fine and it's great. And it's the way that we used to do services for many, many, many years. The reason that we switched to center-based therapy was that we conducted a research project many years ago. I don't remember exactly when it was, Shannon, like mid 2000s. And
yeah, I think it was 2015 is when the study came out, if I'm not mistaken.
Okay, so we would have been doing it around like 2013, maybe 14, I don't know. And so basically what we found was that the kids, we did two sets of studies actually. We first looked at patients who were receiving in-home services versus patients who were receiving in-center. And at that time, remember, we had 75% of our therapy was in-home. So we contrasted the two. And we, shockingly, I thought in-home would be actually a higher rate of acquisition, but it ended up being half of the acquisition that was happening in the centers. So center training was much faster. We were accomplishing a lot more in the same amount of time, twice as much more. Our kids in the centers were learning way faster. So then I thought, I talked with Dr. Dennis Dixon, who runs research at CARD, and I said, well, maybe this has something to do with just the particular kids. So maybe we should run a second study where it's children who are receiving services in both environments and see which environment they're learning in faster. So then we looked at only the kids with us, the patients with us who were receiving both in-home and center-based, just so there would be no confound that, hey, it could have been that all the kids in the centers were, for some reason, getting easier programs, or they were just learning, whatever. So we looked at the same group of kids who were receiving services in both environments, and we found, again, they themselves were learning a lot faster in the centers. We came back and theorized that the reason for this was that there's a lot of distraction in the home. Maybe there's noise, there's a variety of things, but it doesn't really matter. Bottom line is the data, the research that we did showed us that the kids learn a lot faster in a center. Later on, we came to realize there's other additional benefits, obviously, such as social opportunities. Right now, unfortunately, we're pretty restricted in the social aspects of what we can do in a center. You know, we had gyms and we had social center-based activities like that all the kids could do together and so on. And a lot of those are on hold right now due to COVID-19 issues. But that said, I think the main thing about center-based is that the supervisors are there. the BCBAs are present at the center, and they're roaming the floor, and they're observing and making corrections and making changes. And so things tend to happen a little bit faster. Right now, for COVID period, I wouldn't worry too much, because hopefully this is not going to go on forever. And so if your child is learning through home-based, you can maintain some home-based hours. I would encourage you to try to get back to the center, even if it's for just a few blocks of time. There's this whole other aspect, Shannon, we were talking about, which is the more we stay home, the more we start to develop agoraphobia, all of us.
What?
Yeah, all of us.
I don't know anything about that. Yes.
I mean, honestly, my youngest, as you know, Shannon, is in university in San Francisco. Of course, they've all been home for COVID, but truth is, university will start up again in August. And so we had to just do a few days of a drive trip up to the San Francisco area to look for apartments and stuff. And I'm going back again in a week or so, but it's a very unusual feeling to be out there. And the sooner you all, I think, and especially the kids, are able to do it safely, the better, I think, because we all start to get very afraid of being out there. And I worry about our kids being even more so than us, Shannon. Like, with us, it's one thing, like we tell ourselves to be very cautious. And honestly, California is fantastic with this, because I've been to other states where people don't even own a mask. Like, it's crazy to me. But the truth is that if you avoid it too long, it starts to become very, very overwhelming and scary. And so for your children, I think it's a safe place. We are very, very cautious right now, and we do extreme COVID procedures. So it is a safe place to reintroduce your child to, so that they can not develop a massive fear of going out. So long answer to summarize. Essentially, telehealth is fine for various kids for the purposes of supervision and parent training. In-home is fine for all kids, but you're going to have twice as much acquisition once you get back to the centers.
I just want to add to that, in terms of from the parent perspective, each one of them has a little bit different time commitment from you, and a little bit difference in terms of how you will perceive them. But for some folks that are doing telehealth, the parents are getting very involved and learning lots of things, which is really spectacular. I've been blown away by some parents who have been participating in their kids' therapy through telehealth and say, oh my gosh, I had no idea. I've learned so much, and we're making so much progress. But it's a time commitment. And then if you're doing one-on-one in the home, that's a different time commitment for the parent. And having your home ready for therapy and those kinds of things. Dropping kids off at the center involves taking a car trip, but there is that separation, and it is a respite also for the parent while the child is at the center. So I just want to point that out to parents, because I think everybody has a different sliding scale of what they need and what's most important. And I love that Dr. Granpeesheh talked about it in terms of how much the child will learn, but I just wanted to address that for parents too, because it is different. It is different based on which one you choose. So I mentioned that I would have the IBT stuff. If you don't mind, Dr. Granpeesheh, I'm going to run through that really quickly because I think it's super important. So the Institute for Behavioral Training, ibehavioraltraining.com. I mentioned that they have been giving away their parent trainings, which you could look at those under, if you go to the tab that says Health and Human Services, then you go to Caregiver, and then you go to Parent e-learning. And they had been giving those away on a rotating schedule throughout the last 3 months. If you missed that and you see one or two of them that you're like, oh, darn it, I missed it, all you need to do is call 877-975-4545. 4559 and tell them that you watched Autism Live and that you're friends and family with Shannon, and they said that they will hook you up. But right now, the trainings that are free are under the Educator tab. If you go to Educator and then go to Getting Started, there are a whole host of videos there, history and culture of autism, diagnosis and school services, understanding the autism diagnosis, understanding standardized assessments for children on the autism spectrum, scientific evidence supporting early intensive behavioral intervention for children with autism spectrum disorders. Everyone should watch that, and everyone should give that to their school. Alternative treatments for students with autism, effective collaboration across professionals, integrating the student's family, planning a successful parent-teacher conference, and knowing family dynamics. So you go to ibehavioraltraining.com, you go to education, then it'll go K through 12, you go to educator e-learning, and then you put these into your cart, the getting started videos, and then in the promo code, you're gonna write COVID-19. COVID is all capitals, it is case sensitive. So COVID, all caps, -19. If you've done it properly, it will zero out your account and say that you owe nothing, and that is when you hit the purchase, and you will have those videos to watch, which will be super. Also, again, don't forget, if you call 877-975-4559, you can, if you're ordering, you can ask for the parent, any of the parent e-learnings, but also ask for any skills product with a 10% discount. Just make sure that you say that you are friends and family with Shannon. I have lots and friends and family, and I like it that way. Okay, so on our chat, somebody wrote in and said that they have a new BT and they're learning faster about her son in home during COVID. My son is thriving. We lost 3 BTs last couple of weeks. It's hard, but I'm excited about sharing my son with the new BT. And they said, thank you very much to CARD, which I love. I just want to take a second, Dr. Granpeesheh, to talk about with families, the fact that it doesn't matter which ABA provider you're with, behavioral therapists come and go. Mm-hmm. They are of a certain age where they are, you know, they're moving and shaking and going places and doing things, and they move across country to be with their girlfriend, boyfriend. I always say, you know, because I had the one therapist that we just loved, and she was like, oh, I'm leaving to go be an au pair in Australia. And I was like, what? Why would you do that? Because they're at an age where they go and do things like that. So it's hard. It's hard on the family. And whenever it happens, it feels like a death. But I'm always trying to point out to people that is a natural course of events, and that it's actually, in a lot of ways, I have the perspective now from having my kid graduate from his ABA program. It's actually one of the best things for your kid, because they learn, look, you've got a new therapist that just came and your kid is thriving. And because he's had different therapists, it's my experience that he's going to do better in school. What would you like to say about that, Dr. Granpeesheh?
Yeah, and not just school. I mean, I completely agree with you. It's very, very tough. And I want to start by saying I fully empathize with this situation. When my kids were young and they were growing up, I had au pair help, you know, young girls who would come from Germany because their dad was German. And so we had German au pairs. And they would live with us. And I'm telling you, when they left, they were only here for 6 months or a year. It was a upheaval in my life that I did not want. And it was, for my kids, very disturbing. And sometimes it would be more than frequent because they weren't working out. And it was just, I remember being devastated for when some of them left. I fully remember that. But I want to say now, looking back at it, it was a very good thing because my kids learned different things from each one. And more importantly, when you look at life in general, Shannon, if everyone was exactly the same for our kids, they would never learn to deal with difficult situations. They'd never learn to deal with, let's say, the therapist who doesn't give as much reward, or the therapist who doesn't give as much prompting, or the therapist who, whatever, like things that we think are not good. Like we want our kids to have the perfect person who is going to reward and prompt and so on. So, but that's not real life. That is not real life. And our kids eventually need to go out there and be able to deal with the bad teacher, right? And that therapist who's a little bit more tough to deal with is going to prepare your child for the bad teacher more than the fantastic therapist who used to give every. I remember there was a parent who would tell me that the therapist they had was fantastic because they gave all the instructions in very short phrases and very loud. So it worked really well for their child. And I was like, yeah, but that's never going to generalize to the real world, right? So it's that scenario. And I still want to say I completely empathize. I get where the parents come from, but
yeah,
in the long run, it's okay and it's going to be good. Now, having said that, there are just some therapists who are not meant for this field. And if you end up having a therapist where things are not going well for your child, you must bring that up to the supervisor and make sure they hear you, and pay attention to it. And sometimes a change is necessary, or, that therapist just needs to not be working in this field.
Yeah, it's not for everybody. Hey, we've had a couple of people write in things about IBT. Somebody said IBT for special needs bus driver would be awesome. I just want to point out that there is a training that is meant for church and camp and workers that are like crossing guards. So it would be interesting for you to call IBT, ask them if you can take a look at that one and see if it fits for the special needs bus drivers. And if it doesn't, we will let IBT know that that's of interest, because we've seen a lot of things go wrong on buses. We absolutely have. But a lot of times IBT is on it. So they may already have something. Also, somebody said it would be great to have a Spanish version for my old-fashioned mother-in-law that doesn't understand behavior or ABA. And I want you to know that there are some IBT trainings that are already translated into Spanish. Take a look on the website to see which ones and give them a call if there's something specific that isn't there. And thank you very much for that. We always love to hear comments and ferry them over to IBT. Next question. I became an RBT for my son. Already, how much do we love this person? I worked for almost 3 years with children. I had nerve damage and had to change my job, and my certification expires next month. So now it feels like all those days were wasted and behind me. What do you want to say to that person, Dr. Granpeesheh?
Yeah, no, I wouldn't, I would not give up on your certification. First of all, you could reach out to the BACB board, the Behavior Analysis Certification Board. Sorry about that. Yeah, there's another board, as you know, the BICC, and I always confuse those two. So yeah, I would reach out to them and say, you are a parent, you have an RBT, you don't want to lose it. This is your scenario, and they might give you an extension on your renewal. So that's one thing, or they might give you a different way. And by the way, there is a possible different way, I think, which has to do with having someone reevaluate your performance. So there are different ways to maintain your certification. The other thing, and I don't just get a postponement so that you have more time to get your supervision hours. The other thing is, it doesn't really matter in your case unless you want to actually work in the field. All the knowledge that you gained is not going anywhere. It's not about the certificate so much as it is about what you learned. And I would really recommend that you maintain your continuing education. You can do that, again, through IBT. IBT has a ton of continuing ed information. I mean, IBT has stuff that's all the way advanced for BCBAs. So I would really recommend that if you are an RBT and you'd like to just maintain your education and stay fresh and keep learning new things, use IBT's programs. They are amazing. There's stuff on there that would be a refresher for me. So please, don't feel like you've wasted time at all. Just keep going.
Wonderful. Somebody wrote in and said, I'm okay with my son having a new BT, a behavioral therapist, but I love, and there's like 7 O's and 3 V's and 7 E's, our BCBA, and would not be able to handle it if she left. She's amazing. And I love hearing that. I will tell you, my BCBA changed at one point, and I thought the same thing. And the new BCBA opened new doors. Everybody brings something fresh. But the other thing I want people to know is that we have a group at CARD that's called the PTA, and it's the parents group. The parents that are truly amazing is what PTA stands for. And we've discovered this really fun thing, that if you want to keep somebody on your team that's, like your BCBA or whatever, is to really reinforce them. Write them letters and tell them how amazing they are. Have your kid do artwork and on the bottom say, this is possible because of you. That we've seen over the years that when we write letters to those people and tell them what their work means, they tend to stay longer. And we love this. It's like a little magic trick. So we love it. Anything you want to add to that, Doctor? Because everybody likes reinforcement, don't they?
That's why we function. That's why we're alive. So yes.
Okay. I'm sorry, I keep interrupting you. All right.
I wanted our viewers to, if you're with CARD, and I'm pretty sure it's the same with any organization, if you really love your BCBA, let their boss know. Let their boss know how good they are.
Fabulous. My son is 7 and he uses the robotic voice when asking for things in a sentence, I think, or he mimics my voice. How do I help him with this? He has speech and language delay, uses a few sentences, mostly single words.
Yeah. So there is a whole section, again, going back to products that we've already kind of put on the market for our parents. There's a whole section on speech, prosody, and intonation in skills, skills4autism.com, and it would be under the language curriculum, I believe. So that's one resource for you to look at, because again, like everything else, it's not just one lesson. It's a whole series of things that you have to do gradually over time so that your child starts to understand these things. Like with speech prosody, it has to do with actually getting it under control. So getting the child to imitate different sounds, that different expressions, or prosody is the sound of language. So when you say, like, for example, if you say, how are you versus how are you, they completely are different things, right, to us. And those types of things are things you can practice with your child, especially if they're modeling after your speech or trying to sound like you in some cases. It means, and they're also imitating maybe other things like on TV and so on. So it means that you need to basically start to teach them different intonations and sounds for different meanings. So these are the lessons that are in skills. That's kind of what I was referring to. But like, for instance, if you just start teaching how to use the same word as a statement versus a question, that's one way to do it. Another one is to use very, very, well, your child is using single words, I think you said mostly, so you're not even at the point of trying to teach the child sentence intonation. So I think right now, the two things would be to show the child how saying something as a statement is different than as a question. You could just change the intonation. You could record the child and have them listen to themselves. You could have the child try to imitate the way peers or other children say things. all of that. So there's a lot of different ways, but a lot of it is listed in a whole section on speech prosody in the skills curriculum. I would probably start there. And I'm not sure I would spend a whole lot of time on it right at this phase of your child development. I would probably start doing growth on the speech itself, just increasing sentence structure, increasing from 1 word to 2 to 5, increasing the number of words in the sentence prior to really worrying too much about the speech prosody.
Wonderful. The next question we have is, my 13-year-old screams and says horrible things. We tell him to go to his room and he becomes hysterical, not in control, and won't go to his room. I have younger children. How can I make this stop?
Yeah, so we are actually today at, is that the one? Oh, I think that's for card parents. I'm guessing this is not a card parent. So I'm doing a lecture with Shannon at 4 o'clock today for card parents on just how to manage challenging behavior. And this is so I'll go back to explaining the whole concept of challenging behavior. Challenging behavior is not a kind of one of the symptoms of autism. It's a side effect of not being able to communicate over time and of the world accommodating us. So in other words, over time, your child has learned that this form of challenging behavior is effective. It has worked for him. When he goes hysterical and out of control, I'm guessing nobody really wants to go close to him or actually make him go to his room. So he basically ends up getting attention, probably getting the object or thing he wanted, probably getting to avoid scenarios that he didn't want. So it's effective. And the short answer to this is that when any kind of challenging behavior or any kind of behavior is effective, we continue to do it. So the way to make this change is to make sure that it becomes ineffective, so that when he tantrums or screams or so on, he doesn't get to avoid what was being asked of him. And he doesn't get attention and he doesn't gain access to tangibles or situations that he was trying to get access to, but that he gets all those goodies only when he is asking properly or only when he's communicating properly. So it becomes very clear to the child that this set of behaviors are ineffective, but these more appropriate functional behaviors are effective. And then we end up doing those. The way that we do that in ABA is by identifying first what the function is. So exactly why is the child doing this behavior? And then we change the things around the behavior. We change the antecedents, the things that happen before the behavior. We change the things that happen after the behavior, the consequences. And when we change those parameters around the behavior, those criteria, the behavior tends to change. So let's say, did the parents say why when this happens? No,
just that they're 13.
Yeah, so like let's say you ask the child to go to their room and they refuse to go, in that particular scenario, you would have to physically help the child go to their room. And if that's too difficult a thing for you to do, then you wouldn't ask them to go to their room. You would fully follow through with anything that you ask. So in that particular scenario, maybe it's just a matter of ignoring the child while they're screaming and then having the child do something much more effective, much more appropriate, and then rewarding that. But what I really recommend for you is there's a really, really good module on IBT, Institute for Behavior Training. I know today we're talking all about IBT and skills, but that's because everything that is in my head and in the heads of all the wonderful senior clinicians at CARD were put down into writing into skills and IBT. And so all of these procedures, the challenging, how to manage all challenging behaviors, not just this one, is a very, very good series of modules on IBT. And I would really recommend you start there. Just go to IBT, take a look at the list of modules, and you should find just managing challenging behavior. And it starts there, and you can have multiple advanced versions of that where you can truly understand all the functions and how to use various ABA techniques to reduce those behaviors.
Yeah, I always appreciate these discussions because as a parent, like, it was so enlightening for me when I finally got it, when I understood, oh, we all do things for a reason. And when you start to learn about perspective taking and how we're going to teach perspective taking to our kids, you can become a student of that yourself. And I always try to put myself in the shoes of the kid. And I have no idea why the 13-year-old is screaming, but you know, there's a reason. There's definitely a reason why a 13-year-old screams. And I just picture myself, because I am terrible. If I'm not being listened to, I melt down. Shannon, melt down. And you know, if I was trying to convey something and nobody was listening, I have been known to yell before. I know that shocks all of you. But if I started yelling because I was that upset because I wasn't being heard, and then someone told me to go to my room, oh, heaven help all of you, I would lose myself entirely. Like, that would be like, I would lose it too. And I think, you know, if you listen very carefully to what Dr. Granpeesheh said and work with somebody who's going to find out why was the screaming to begin with, because there's something that they needed. And it might be that they just enjoy screaming, but it might not be. It might be that there was something else that they wanted and they didn't have a better way to do it. But sometimes we get so caught up in, well, you know, now I'm telling him to go to his room and he won't go, and I have to have that compliance. But I hope you listen to Dr. Granpeesheh and go back to why is the screaming happening? What was it that he wanted? And what I learned as a parent, very rudimentary, very early on for ABA, was that if my child is doing something that is counterproductive to him and our lives and whatever, it's because he wanted something. And I don't want to give him what he wanted when he's screaming. I want to give it to him when he's doing the right thing. And when that clicked in my head, it was like we were off to the races, and things started to get better in my life, in his life, and in everybody's life who he touched. And in the meantime, a parent has written in with a different scenario. When my son is frustrated, he cries very loud. We keep telling him to use his words to express his feelings. His speech is functional, but not conversational. So we feel sad that our not express what he feels frustrated instead of crying so loud. And she says that he is 6. So different scenario, different age child, but again, behavior is communication.
Yeah, and very similar to a typically developing child. I mean, a lot of times our kids become frustrated, and they're so frustrated or so angry or so sad or whatever it is that they just can't stop for a moment to use their words. I understand it's sad for parents to see that. I would try a couple of different things. One is try to get him to voice himself before he gets too carried away. The more, as Shannon was explaining, the more upset we are, the more we lose our words. So it's better to try, if you, and I know our parents are very, very astute at seeing signs that something bad's about to happen. So if you are able to almost predict that he's about to have a meltdown, that would be a good time to try to ask him why, what's causing the meltdown. The other thing is, this is always, if you remember, Shannon, in school, we all had 2 types of tests, right? We had multiple choice types of tests, and then we had tests where you just had to respond, recall tests, right? Where there wasn't a choice. And there's a lot of research that shows multiple choice is a lot easier because it's all visually kind of a prompt in front of you and you just have to choose one than pulling it completely out of your head. So if you have any idea as a parent of the various things, let's say 4 things that generally upset your child, then maybe you can either write them or produce a picture icon of each one, and present those to your child and say, which one of these? Why are you upset? Is it because of this or this or this? Which one is it? And if you can't make them visual, you could always offer them verbally. I just find that our kids do a lot better when there's a visual stimulus. So you could certainly say, are you upset because you want the toy? Are you upset because you don't want to go out? Like, give him the options. And remember, it's always just 2 things. We want to avoid something, or we want to gain access to something. That's it. What is the child trying to avoid? Is he trying to avoid a demand that was placed, an environment, a person, an activity? What is he trying to avoid? And what is he trying to gain access to? It's always either a tangible object or attention, or again, an activity. So it's like, just figure that out for him. What's the most likely scenario, and show them to him. Sometimes you'll be right and he'll say, it's that one. And then what you can do is you'll say, okay, then all you have to do is say the following, like ask for a break, or say later, mommy, or say, I really want that toy, or whatever it is, right? And you teach him to do it appropriately, to request appropriately, and then you let him have it. You completely reward him, you calm him down, you do all the things that you normally would want to do. That's really the key. And if you don't guess, then we're not anywhere soft than where we are now, right? It's a matter of just trying to help him find his words. And again, as we mature and as he learns more language, that will improve.
One of the things you guys taught us too, because my son never, I mean, there's a lesson in skills about states, about understanding your states and languaging them. I'm not sure how, but I remember that when my son couldn't language his states, that you guys prompted us to language them for him,
Right.
which was so pivotal for me as a parent, because no one had ever taught me to do that. No one had ever taught me to label how I was feeling. But so, for instance, if he was crying, I told the story the other day about a balloon that burst. And if he was crying, that we would say to him, yes, you're feeling sad. Yes, you're feeling frustrated. Yes, you're feeling hot, or yes, you're feeling cold, or whatever. And to language it for him, and to affirm for him that he was feeling something, and that we were receiving the message of what it was that he, but that was healing for me as a parent. It was like, yes, you're feeling sad. Yes, you're feeling frustrated. It just by me languaging it, it gave us a way to connect. And ultimately he did learn, oh, when this is happening, these are the things that I can say that you will understand, because we labeled it for him. I don't know, is that a thing, or was that just us?
Such a great thing that you pointed out, Shannon. And for all of us, it's funny, to this day, and Shannon, my oldest daughter has studied psychology, right? And she has her master's, and she's now thinking about a doctoral program in psychology. And so we're in the same world, she and I. And so we often go back and forth and analyze each other and others. Fun. But she was telling me the other day, she was like, sometimes I just tell you something, not because I want your help figuring out how to fix it, but just because I want to feel affirmed. Like, I just want your affirmation. I just want you to say you understand how I feel. And so to this day, I need a reminder of what you just said, which is sometimes with our kids, if they're freaking out about something, it's not because, and we as parents tend to immediately try to figure out, how can I help? How can I help? That's really not what they want. They just want that. They want the recognition of how they feel. And as Shannon pointed out, when they're young and on the spectrum adds to that, obviously, they don't know how to label how they feel. even as adults, a lot of times we don't know how to label if it's anxiety or if it's depression. What is it? Like, why do I feel this way? I just don't want to go out, you know? So it's like, we need people, it's the better we get at identifying the different emotions, the more we're able to vocalize what's going on with us. And that is magic, because it leads to less challenging behavior, because challenging behavior is only an expression of how we feel without using the right words. So the more we have the right words, the better it is. Great.
And I just want to say to this mom too, at 6, you know, I was still doing that with my son and saying to him, yes, you're feeling frustrated. Yes, you're feeling sad. But by the time he was, what, 9, I remember a time when he was upset and I was like, what's going on? And he said, it's fine. I'm just frustrated. That's all. I'm just frustrated. And I was like, oh, okay. Well, all right then. So, you know, but that was years of us going, yes, you're feeling frustrated right now. And it's okay to feel frustrated. You know what I mean? I have to say, I have to tell myself that sometimes. Okay, we got time for one more question.
Answers to these scenarios.
How to increase one word manding to 2 words as he gets frustrated. Frustration is the word of the day, I think. He gets frustrated and leaves the motivation behind if we prompt him to say 2 words. So I think if he's being asked to say 2 words, the thing that he wanted isn't. I'm inferring from this that the thing is not that important, and so he's like, forget it. It's not worth it to me.
Too much. It's not worth it anymore. Yeah, I would select. I wouldn't do it. So just to make things a little easier for him, instead of doing it normally, I would say across the board, whatever he wants, you need to now require 2 words. But if he is getting really frustrated with that, you can start with one item. Like whenever he wants juice, he has to say want juice. And I would prompt it more. For instance, you can even model the entire thing. You can say want juice, and then he has to say want juice. Another way you can prompt it, which is very effective, is by holding up 2 fingers. So want juice, give him a visual that you're asking for 2 things. Another way you can prompt it is by just words on 2 separate cards. There's a lot of different ways, and you can also write the 2 word responses on a bunch of different bulletin boards all over the house so that he has visual prompts for that. But the bottom line is he's not going to go to 2 words unless you require it. And the only way you can require it is by not giving in when he requests the 1 word. And as Shannon said, if he walks away, he walks away. What you need to do is as everything else, you increase the prompt, you increase the reinforcer. That's how you make things easier.
Yeah, I think, you know, one of the hardest things about this journey, Dr. Granpeesheh, is that I used to say this all the time. If I could just know the story and read the last page, I could get through all the stuff. But a lot of times when parents are new, it's like they're navigating, but they don't know what the end goal looks like. And, you know, years ago, we had a series called The A Word, which sort of showed you one little boy going through this series, and you got to see the arc to see where he got. So you go, oh, okay, it's all normal. We're on track. This is the next phase. And there will be many more phases. I don't need to get that upset about this one because there are going to be 32 more. I'm going to run out of gas if I get this upset about all of them. And you just take it and you just keep moving the goalposts and they get there. Right. And I always wonder how it is we're going to be able to give that gift to parents. A Word isn't available right now for various and sundry reasons, for very good reasons. But I wish there was a way that we could give parents the whole picture so that we didn't have to worry as much on the path.
That's right.
I remember one parent telling me after we had Jem, she was like, just promise me you'll have a second child. And I
Yeah.
was like, well, that's a weird thing. And she was like, no, you don't get to enjoy the first one because you're so worried about everything that when you have the second child, you go, oh, no, it's okay that they're doing that. It'll all work itself out. And I didn't end up having a second child, but I think it's the reverse with autism parents. I think when a second child is diagnosed, it's that much harder for an autism parent. But I wish there was a way that we could gift parents with here's how the story ends. Now do the work.
Well, you know, to tell
yeah.
you, Shannon, and it's a good discussion, but like I want to tell you, as the parent of 3 typically developing kids, it's the same for us. Like it doesn't matter. You always look back and you're always worried. At least I was worried for all 3 of my kids throughout the whole phase. It never got easier. In fact, in my case, it got harder on the 3rd one since she has the same exact personality as I do. But like, you know, and then you look back and you're like, I should have done this differently, or I should have done that differently, and so on and so forth. And even me as a lifelong behavioral psychologist, like, you know, I struggled with a lot of stuff. I mean, you know, I've told you I would sit outside Charlie's room crying, thinking, when is she ever going to stop, go to sleep, you know? So it happens to all of us, and it is just part of raising our kids, and we get better at it. That's why they say grandchildren are so much fun. So
we can only hope. We can only hope. We are out of time, but I just have so appreciated being here with all of you and being here with Dr. Granpeesheh. We thank you for your time, Dr. Granpeesheh. I want to let folks know that tomorrow on the show, Elaine Hall is going to be here with the young performers from the Miracle Project. They're going to be talking about their new show that they're debuting tomorrow night. I also want to remind everybody that we are going to be, thank you to CARD, the Center for Autism and Related Disorders, we're going to be hosting the virtual memorial for Joanne Lara on Saturday. You can register for that memorial. It's free. You just have to register so you can get the password. It's on Autism Live's website, right, on Facebook, on Facebook. It's on my Facebook. Please go there, find the link, and register for that. That is at 10:30 in the morning Pacific time, so 1:30 Eastern time, and please do the math wherever you are in the world. Dr. Granpeesheh will be one of the speakers, and we will remember a life well lived. So that will be on Saturday, but join us back here tomorrow for the Miracle Project and Elaine Hall and these wonderful kids, wonderful performers. And then on Friday, we're having Vince Redmond, licensed and marriage family therapist. Vince Redmond will be joining me and Nancy Allspaw Jackson. That's what's happening. Until then, give your kiddos a hug for me and one for you too. Bye-bye for now. Thank you, Dr. Granpeesheh.
The advice and opinions expressed by the host of Autism Live and her guests are meant solely as suggestion and should not be in any way construed as child-specific advice. The Center for Autism and Related Disorders advises working with a board-certified behavior analyst who has experience with autism before starting any intensive behavioral intervention. Any choices you make in determining your child's treatment are completely at your own discretion.
Good morning and welcome to Autism Live. This is Charles, better known as Cheese, and he's our new mascot. So if you hear little woofing that's happening during the show, it's because Cheese hangs out with me during the show, right, Cheese? This was one of Joanne's 3 dogs, and he is now living with us and our puppy Doodle. And say hi, Cheese. Hi. So he's every once in a while. Do you want to get down? Every once in a while, you'll hear him give a little huff, and that he's sneezing right now. I just wanted you to know what it was. It's not bad vacuuming. It is Cheese. Hey, so I'm Shannon Penrod, and we're coming to you live from the house and other places around Los Angeles. We're so excited to be here with you this morning. We got a big show planned for you, and I'm so excited because we have some really talented performers who are going to be joining us in just a few minutes. And that always fills my heart. And I just want to remind, since we brought up Joanne, I want to remind everybody that day after tomorrow on Saturday is the virtual memorial for Joanne Lara, and we're excited and nervous about that. The Center for Autism and Related Disorders has graciously donated their Zoom webinar platform so that we can invite anybody who wants to come and be a part of it. And we're really appreciative to them for doing that. And so Traven and I are running the tech end of the behind the scenes end of the memorial. And, we're excited to have an opportunity to do that and to serve Joanne. And we're hoping that, we're saying thank you for good internet. I was told the other day, don't just keep asking for good internet. Say thank you for providing good internet. So that's what I'm doing. So that is on Saturday, and all of you are welcome to come. The speakers are going to be off the chain. We have Ed Asner, Joe Montaigne, Chuck Saffler, Dr. Doreen Granpeesheh, and many more. Dr. Temple Grandin, Dr. Stephen Shore. I mean, it's just going to be a really amazing program, we hope. Fingers crossed. Internet, thank you for good internet. In any case, we're here today on Autism Live, and we're going to be talking about autism from a 360-degree perspective. We hope that you'll hear something today that will provide you information and inspiration, right? We'll take both, but either or would work, right? That is our mission here, and I want to be clear that our mission, we're really speaking out to the greater autism community, and that starts, of course, with that beautiful core of individuals who are on the autism spectrum, of course, because we want to serve them and give them a voice and give them an opportunity to tell us what they need so that we can better serve them. But we also extend our hope and our mission to those who love individuals on the autism spectrum, because we know we get there as a community. Si se puede, right? We hold hands virtually to get there. So that's what we're about. If you are a parent, a teacher, a sibling, a spouse, a boyfriend, or a girlfriend of someone who's on the autism spectrum, we welcome you as well to be here to learn about the things that you can do to provide support and to fight for the rights of the individual that you love on the autism spectrum, that they be treated with the dignity that they deserve, that they are able to pursue the things that they want to pursue, that they have the resources to do that, that they get the employment, the housing, the respect that is owed to them. That's what we're about, top to bottom. And I always like to remind you guys that we have experts that are on the show. I'm not one of them, but I am one of the part of the community that loves someone on the autism spectrum. I love many people on the autism spectrum, but it started with my son, who was diagnosed with autism at the age of 2.5. He's now a beautiful 17 and amazing and the light of my life, right? But there were times when we were having a really hard time and he was struggling to be able to do the things that he wanted to do, to be able to communicate what he needed. We got great resources, and part of the reason why I feel compelled to be here is to help you to get to what you need. It's not one size fits all, right? I love, speaking of Dr. Stephen Shore, he's famous for having said, if you've met one person with autism, you have met one person with autism, right? It's not a one size fits all. But we hope that we can help you to connect to things that are purposeful and meaningful to all of the members of that community that we were talking about, the autism, the greater autism community, right? And by greater, I mean larger. And somebody already wrote in and said, we love the Miracle Project. And so I'm glad that you're here today, because we are going to be featuring in just a little while Elaine Hall and a few of the performers from the Miracle Project, because they have a show that's opening tonight. And if you're wondering, wait a second, I think you're in Los Angeles, Shannon, and I don't know how you're opening a show tonight. Let's wait till we talk to Elaine Hall and she'll tell us more information about that. But before we get there, we have to remind you that the show is interactive in all parts of it, including when we have the folks from the Miracle Project on. We love to hear your thoughts, feelings, questions, and concerns. We love it when you just say hi. We're saying good morning to Michelle right now, and good morning to Raquel as well. So feel free to write in on whatever platform you're watching. For those of you who are new to the program, hi Wendy, hi Swathi. Excited that I'm going to be on Swathi's radio show on Monday afternoon. Swathi and I are going to be talking on her radio show, so that will be really fun. But we have a bunch of different ways that you can interact with us here. I want to remind you that we are live right now on Periscope, Twitter, Facebook, and on YouTube. And later on, it will still exist recorded on those platforms, but we will also podcast it to iTunes, Deezer, iHeartRadio, and I'm forgetting one. Spotify. That's what I'm forgetting. And we are always live and recorded on autism-live.com. That's our homepage. And there's a lot you can do on the homepage. You can search back through old shows. If there's a topic that you want to research, or you're like, I just love Dr. Temple Grandin, and I just want to see Dr. Temple Grandin, there's a whole playlist where you don't have to search through to find all the videos that she's in. They're there. There's also a playlist, for instance, for the Ask Dr. Doreen's, and a couple, like if you just tune in for the recipes and you've been missing the recipes, the playlist is there. Go to our website and click on the What's Left, and you can see all the fabulous things that you can cook without using gluten, dairy, soy, what's left, right? That's why it's called What's Left. All right, so check that out. By the way, while you're there, there is a chat button at the bottom of that page, and it's free and anonymous. And in addition to the other ways that you can participate with us, there is that chat on autism-live.com. We're getting ready, we're getting geared up to start working on our toy guide. And so I want to remind everybody too, if you've been looking for a toy, something that's right for the individual, and I say toy because I still like toys and I still like all the toys, but there are adult things that I love, like we had some puzzles on a couple of weeks ago. We're going to get back to featuring some toys and games, but in the meantime, if you're looking for something, we have 3 years worth of toy guides that are available. If you want the most recent one, click the toy guide at the top of the page on autism-live.com. If you want the other two, just click on blog, because they are the top 2 posts there. We moved them so that they would be there. Wasn't that nice of us? And by the way, I think in all 3 of those, maybe only the last 2 years, you guys asked us to make it interactive, so that if there was a toy that you liked, you wanted to be able to click on the name of the toy and go to a place where you could purchase it. I just want to be clear that we're not getting a percentage of that. That we just did that because that was something you guys asked, because you were like, don't make me have to go write down the name and go Google search it. And I was like, oh yeah, that'd be a pain in the neck. So it does, the toy connects directly with where you can purchase it. Can I share your Autism Live to my support group? Absolutely, of course. There is a button, especially on YouTube and on Facebook, where you can share us with whoever you would like to. We are here to be a free resource, and we would like to be on as many screens for free as we possibly can. We work on a very tight budget, and there is no money for promotion or PR. We really count on the grassroots of all of you. So I'm supposed to remind you all the time, and I forget to, that please share us. Please like us on Facebook. Please subscribe to us either on Facebook, on our homepage, or on YouTube, or all of them. And please leave a review for us on iTunes, because that helps more people. Believe it or not, the algorithm is such that the more reviews you get on iTunes, the more they bump you up, and then they give you free PR. They recommend you to people because it seems like people are watching. So absolutely, please share. The one thing that we ask is that you share from the link so that we keep account of how many people are watching the show. That's what makes it possible for us to keep the lights on, is that if we're relevant, then we can keep the lights on. So please share from the mother link. We have had people before just take our stuff and you know, I understand that. And as much as I want, you know, there is a way for you to take it and still have us get the count. That's all. So there you go. All right. So on Thursdays, we like to start the show with something we fondly refer to as the jargon of the day. And this is when we take on one word, one phrase, one acronym. We try to figure out what in the hey nani are the experts talking about? Why do we need to know this? Why does it matter? Can't we just be left alone? And why do they have to make it so difficult, right? But the longer we're here, the more we learn that the jargon terms, if we make friends with them, they can be helpful to us. So what we do here is we give you first the actual definition, then a working definition, and then we try to break it down a little bit. Whenever possible, I try to make fun of the actual definition because most of them are, not all of them, but a lot of them are useless. Unless you have a degree in like law and psychology and ABA, they're paperweights. They're just not useful. They could, you know, stop a door because some of them are long enough, but other than that, right? So let's take a look. Today's jargon term is ABA. Now, I sort of put the cart before the horse, but the last 3 days, so on Monday, our jargon term was DTT. On Tuesday, it was NET, and today we've arrived at ABA. If you watch this show, this is something that we talk about a fair amount, and there's a good reason why. So let's take a look at what our actual definition of ABA is. ABA is Applied Behavior Analysis. That's what ABA stands for. Notice it's not behavioral analysis. I know that that's like a really small thing, but when you're at a table and you want to make it look like you know what you're talking about, that is a definitive thing. For folks who say, well, applied behavioral analysis, that shows that you're new to the game. So learn that applied behavior analysis. It's the application of the principles of learning and motivation from behavior analysis. Well, there you go. That clarified the whole thing. It employs procedures and technology derived from scientifically demonstrated principles of behavior to increase socially significant behaviors and decrease unwanted or inappropriate behaviors. I got to be honest, like I really hate this definition because it really doesn't tell me what we're talking about. And it throws in these things about unwanted and inappropriate behaviors. It feels judgy to me. Does it feel judgy to you? It feels a little judgy to me. So, and I don't like that because my understanding of ABA and how ABA has worked in my life, it's not judgy. So I don't like that. Let's move on to our working definition and see if we can't poke some holes in this thing and see what holds water. So ABA is a proven method of increasing or teaching desired behavior and reducing unwanted behavior. So, you know, think about anybody in life who wants to learn something and wants to learn it in a way that's really effective, because the whole point of learning is so that you can, you know, have this thing and be able to use it. Like nobody wants to walk around and just be a receptacle of knowledge. The whole point of learning is so that you can gain knowledge and be able to use it and make it your own. And as a former teacher, and I think once a teacher, always a teacher, I believe that we all should be curious and wanting to learn and grow our whole lives. I know it's not necessarily everybody's thing, but I really like to be around people who want to learn. And I love to learn something new. I don't want to know everything. But every once in a while, I'll be like, ooh, I want to learn how to do that, right? And when I want to learn how to do something, I don't want to spend all my time being frustrated. And I don't want to get to the point where I go, well, that's it. I guess I just can't learn that. if I was curious enough to want to learn it, then I want to be able to learn it. So I want to work with teachers who are good at what they do and who know how to make it so that I can learn and that I can progress, right? And the fact of the matter is that ABA is widely considered the greatest teaching method that there is because it's effective. Because it's effective and because people do make progress and they learn how to do things, and it makes for a happier person the way that you do it, because it's not browbeating somebody. It's not that. So here's the truth of ABA. All kinds of people use ABA. I know that ABA gets talked about in the autism world and everybody goes, oh, ABA is an autism therapy. Well, I mean, that is true. And it is the only autism therapy that has been found to be effective for all different kinds of people on the autism spectrum, of all different abilities and all different ages. That's true. But it just so happens that ABA is not an autism therapy only. It is actually a proven method of increasing and teaching behaviors that we want to do and can help us to decrease behaviors that we don't want to do. So businesses use this, nursing homes use this, Olympic athletes use this. People who want to perform at their highest level use ABA. So I want you to know that, but it just so happens that a couple of people experimented with ABA, but it wasn't until Ivar Lovaas in the 80s decided that he wanted to work with younger kids on the autism spectrum, and he wanted to work with them intensively over an intense period of time. He was doing 40 hours of therapy with them over a 2-year period. And what he found was definitively that ABA was an effective tool to teach individuals on the autism spectrum. He found that definitively. In fact, it was so effective that roughly around 40, I think it's like, because different studies show different things, but 40 something, I think one shows 42, one shows 47, one shows 49. So 40 something percent of kiddos who received during a certain window of time between the ages of 3 and 5, if they got intensive ABA that was done quality ABA, that was done a minimum of 40 hours a week, that somewhere in the neighborhood of the 40 whatever percent of them would no longer need support for the rest of their lives. I know, take that in for a moment, because you may not have heard that. In all the chatter, sometimes that gets lost, but that's the core. That 40 some odd percent, if they got intensive ABA over a minimum of 2 years, would no longer need support for the rest of their lives. Now, it wasn't everybody. Let's be clear about that. It wasn't everybody. But so what happened to that other 40 some odd percent that, or 50 whatever percent that didn't get to the point where they didn't need support the rest of their lives? They still made tremendous progress. They just made it in different categories. There was actually 2 other groups, one that made tremendous progress but still needed a bit of support in their lives. And then there was a third category of people who needed more significant support, but they still made tremendous progress. It's just the things that they made progress in were different than the other 2 groups. They made progress in adaptive skills. They were able to be toileted. They were able to do chores. They were able to have functional communication, but they still were going to need some significant support the rest of their life. Now, knowing this, like when this study broke in 1987, it was earth-shattering to parents all over the world. And there was a growing movement of people who said, now that I know that, and nobody else using any other teaching technique has been able to demonstrate anything close to that, I want for my child to get ABA. Now, I will say that ABA has gone through a lot of different changes. And now, because of all the studies, hundreds of studies now that show the effectiveness of ABA, in the last few years, laws were passed that forced insurance to pay for ABA. And that's all of the 50 states have some sort of a mandate now here in the United States about covering ABA. That doesn't mean that everybody has access to it yet, but we're closer than we've ever been before. But so here's a couple of the rubs here. The biggest thing that I want people to know is that a lot of times parents are veering from what the research said. This is a proven method, scientific basis that says, here are the things that we know. And we don't know everything, but here are the things that we know. If kids within that window of 3 to 5 get that intensive ABA, and you've heard people say early intervention, early intervention, early intervention. But it isn't just early intervention, it's early intensive intervention. That gives you the best window for success. Now, is that everything? Does that mean if you have a 7-year-old, well, you're done, peace out, you missed the boat? No, it doesn't mean that at all. It just means that the studies have not been done in that area, and it means you're gonna have to fight harder. But we see kids make progress at 7 all the time. We see people who are 17 make progress. We see people who are 77 make progress using ABA. So ABA is a tool, which means that it's important that you be using the tool with people who know how to use the tools. And it's great that insurance is funding ABA. It is absolutely fabulous. We like celebrate it when ABA is paid for by insurance. It's an amazing, amazing thing. But it does mean that a lot of people have hung out a shingle and said, hey, I'm an ABA provider. There is a board that governs and says that people have to be a board certified behavior analyst, which is great. So we have a baseline of people who know ABA. But I would say to you, you need someone who not only knows ABA, but knows ABA in the world of autism and has experience, and that they have proven results. And then there are a lot of other things that go into making a quality ABA provider. But I just want to tell you, if you are listening to me and you are a person who's struggling, whether you yourself are on the autism spectrum or you have a loved one who's on the autism spectrum and you're struggling with something, please look into ABA. You're going to see a lot of things, and we talk about that here on the show. Everyone is not a fan of ABA. I would say to you that most of the people who are not fans of ABA are not fans of the earliest version, which wasn't even called ABA then. It was called behavior modification. And if you've got a good quality ABA provider, it is so very not related to that. And I can talk about that ad infinitum. But all I want you to know is the reason why I get so hepped up about this, the reason why it just means the world to me, is because I was someone who was told not to do ABA with my child. See, I'm gonna get emotional. I was told by a developmental pediatrician, do not do ABA with your child. And she told me that it would turn him into a robot and that that they would treat him less than human. And so I said, well, we're not doing that, because that is not the kind of parent I am. If you know me, you know that that is not me. And so for 6 months, while my child lost all functional communication, I was offered ABA services because I lived in the great state of California, and they were offering it to me for free. And I said, no, more times than you could shake a stick at. I said, no. And then finally, I met a family, and I met their child, and their child was doing amazingly, and he was talking in full sentences. And that child was Logan Shepard. You've seen him before on the show. And that family told me about good quality ABA. And they said, you gotta take a look at this, because in fact, what they said was, you gotta go to CARD because miracles happen there. And I saw this young man, I saw how he was doing, and I saw videos of how he had been before, and I saw videos of what CARD was doing with him, and I was sold. And then they gave me a book to read that was by Christina Adams, and we have Christina on the show all the time. She wrote a book called A Real Boy, changed my life. We started at CARD. It was hard. We fought and fought and fought everybody to get started at CARD. And for my son, it was more than 2 years. Just keeping it real here. Just keeping it real. It was 5 years. Not all of them at 40 hours, but in the beginning, it was 40 hours a week. And I remember thinking that was crazy. Crazy good is what it is. And my son is 17 and he's a senior now, as of the other day. And we are writing down all the colleges he's applying to. And people are like, so what colleges is he applying to? Well, Harvard and, USC and all these amazing schools. That's where my life is. And my son and I have deep conversations about everything under the sun. This is why it's important to me. If I had listened to that first person and not done what we did, quality ABA, I don't know where we would be. And I can't even think about it. I just want you to know it's there. It's available. You're going to have to work to get it, but it's available there for you. Please, if you're listening to me and you're not sure, call me up, write to me. Let's talk. ABA, quality ABA can make a huge, huge difference. All right. I don't want to waste any more time because we're getting behind here, but you know where I'm coming from. All right, moving on. We always have a question of the day for you. And the question is, who do you wish you could meet? Like, who would you love to meet? Like, let's just put it out there because you know who I want to meet. Like, if you watch this show, I want to meet Oprah. I just want to meet Oprah. I've met a lot of people. It's been very exciting in my life, but I have not yet met Oprah. But I will boo-hoo cry. But I want to meet Oprah. That's who I want to meet. Okay, but who do you want to meet? I want to know who you want to meet. Okay, next, we always have our topic, of the week. And our topic this week is climbing the mountain. And we've been talking about how important it is. You stand at the base, you look up at the top of the mountain, and it seems really far away. You got to get on the mountain. You got to get on the path. And when you start walking up the path, you can't see the top of the mountain anymore when you're on the path. That's okay. You focus on what's in front of you, but you keep moving. And that's how you get to the top of the mountain. And we will get there. Si se puede, right? We hold hands, we will get there together. And I love that our guests that are going to be on the show today are people who've been climbing the mountain and they're someplace really fabulous. And it's important when you're climbing the mountain every once in a while to stop, look and go, look at how far we've come. Right. So I really, really love our guest today, and she's got some wonderful guests that she's bringing with her. Of course, we're talking about Elaine Hall from the Miracle Project. And I hope that you guys tuned in on HBO to see Autism, the sequel, earlier in April, at the very end of April, that was playing on HBO. And I hope that you've seen the first one, Autism, the musical. Coachy Elaine Hall. Is she with us, Traven? Because if she is, let's go ahead and bring Elaine Hall in. She's an amazing, look at that, a Miracle Project, Rehearsing for Life. Amazing, amazing organization, amazing performers. Do we have Elaine? I think we've got some of her students here, but we're going to hold off on those until we have Elaine here with us. And hopefully, let me check my phone, see if Elaine's having a problem. Okay, so there she is. Hi, Elaine.
Hi.
How are you?
I'm good. I'm good. We have our show tonight, and so it's kind of,
it's like giving birth. It's like you work on something, and now you're gonna put it out there for the world to see. It's a very exciting time, and I'm sure you're very busy. So I'm glad you could spend a few minutes with us today.
Oh, always. Thank you so much. Thank you so much. We're my favorite place to be. So thank you so much.
We've got a lot of new viewers on today, so tell them a little bit about the Miracle Project and how it came to be, Elaine.
Okay, the Miracle Project is a fully inclusive, neurodiverse theater, film, social skills, life skills, work skills, and creative expression program for all ages and all abilities. And it started when I'm a TV and film acting coach. And when my son was diagnosed with autism, traditional therapies didn't work for him. But what did work was creativity and music and dance and drama. And when I joined his world, he was able to emerge into our world. I started training with some of the greats. Dr. Granpeesheh, of course, I learned from her. I learned from Dr. Greenspan. I learned from Barry Prezant and Stephen Shore, and created a methodology so that I could train my actor, singer, dancer friends how to join my son's world. And as a result of that, he merged into our world, still autistic, still non-speaking, but happy, joyous, connected. And those methods are now the inclusion from within methods and have been replicated across the globe. And we create original musicals, and that's what we're doing tonight.
Amazing. And especially in this time, I mean, we have theater, I'm seeing some of the places that I subscribe to, they're just canceling their entire season for the next year, but not the Miracle Project. You have said we're taking this online. And so explain to us what's happening tonight, how people could participate, how they can view, and what this is going to be like.
Thanks, Shannon. Well, it's exactly what you said. We were supposed to go live at our artistic home, the Wallace Annenberg Center for the Performing Arts, and we were supposed to perform in June 11th. And when we found out that we were not going to be able to, it was heartbreaking, and I didn't want our students to be disappointed. So in less than a month and a half, we created an original musical for Zoom, and the students actually have filmed themselves and learned how to do audio recording. And I mean, it's been unreal, phenomenal what they've accomplished. We have a brilliant music director, Noel Katz, and assistant director, Sandy Abramson, and then our genius editor, Justin Anthony Long, pieced it together. And I think and I've got a couple of the students that are here to.
Yeah, let's welcome them. Let's Traven, go ahead and let them in. And then Coach E, we're going to have you introduce everybody to us.
Wonderful. And I think, is there a trailer too to show?
Yeah, there is a trailer. Should we do that while we let them in?
That's a great idea.
Okay, so let's do that. Traven, go ahead and go to the trailer. And so the name of this show is The Influencer?
Yes. And the idea is, how are we influenced by society, corporations, music, and how does it impact us? And how do we make a positive influence on others?
Well, that's pretty timely. Here we go. Here's the trailer. Well, that is just awesome. That is just awesomeness. And so we see that we are welcoming. Go ahead and introduce us, Coach. Hi.
Hi.
So tell us who we're looking at, Elaine.
Oh, I get to introduce them. Okay.
Yes.
So we have the stars of the show, and we have Dominique Brown, who plays Frankie T, who's one of the cool kids, and is at first misunderstood by some of the kind of our more intellectual students. And at first he's misunderstood, but then they realize that he's a super nice guy, and actually brings in, he's a musician, and Dom has some songs a song that he wrote, and then he's also singing along with another one of our actors who wrote another song. And then we have his amazing mom, Monique. And
hi, Shannon.
Monique, hi. So good to see you guys.
Good to see you.
And Monique, the parents and siblings had to help with filming, so I thought we'd bring Monique on to kind of share a little bit about that. And
Wonderful.
then we also have Jojo and Dylan Kiedman, and they are a brother and sister act, but they play entirely different roles. And I'll let you tell them a little bit, but Jojo plays one of the high school students, and she's hilarious and wonderful. And Dylan is our scientist who helps to craft a potion that has I'm not going to give it away, but has an influence on culture. And also Dylan was one of our writers. So Dylan
Wonderful.
worked with us in the beginning when we had a really long script, and then helped us condense it and make it meaningful in the version that you'll see. And it's actually a complete half-hour virtual musical that you'll see.
Love it. Before I ask you guys questions, where are we getting the tickets and how much are the tickets and all of that, Elaine?
So the tickets can be found on the Miracle Project website, themiracleproject.org, themiracleproject.org, and you'll see ticketing information. And what's really exciting is, well, tonight is our premiere, and we found out that what we're doing is historic, never been done, with a neurodiverse cast, all filmed in quarantine, an original musical. So we have made history, and you'll be making history with us tonight. And then on Sunday, we have a 4 o'clock Pacific time, 7 o'clock Eastern time, where we are having it captioned, and we have a sign language interpreter. So we really want to make the show accessible to everyone. So I'm really jazzed.
Okay, so Dom, I want to talk to you and your mom first, and then we'll come to you guys, Dylan and JoJo. But Dom, you've been with the Miracle Project for a while. How long have you been doing the Miracle Project?
Exactly since 2014. That's 7 years.
7 years.
Wow. And you know, I've gotten to see you perform. You are amazingly talented, and I think you know that, and I've told you that before. And I'm sure you just must be so proud of him, Mom.
I am. I'm very proud of him and very excited to see the production that they put on.
Yeah.
I know that they worked really hard. Well, we all did, but
I'm
they
sure.
really worked hard. So,
But
and
the
this was
parents are important.
different for them. So,
Yeah.
you know.
But Dom, you're somebody who's been performing a lot. What, maybe if you could help the parents that are watching understand, what does this do for you, having the opportunity to perform?
It gives me the opportunity to shine, and you know, I help others understand that, you know, it's more than just being autistic. It's also being a human being. So sorry.
No. That's absolutely beautiful. And I can't imagine a world in which you didn't get to perform. So I can't imagine how hard this shutdown has been for you, but are you really glad that you got an opportunity to still perform during this?
Yeah, absolutely. It's different, but we still get to have the opportunity.
Do you get antsy when you don't get to perform? Do you get like, oh, I gotta do something?
Yeah, sort of.
Does he have a hard time, Mom?
Yes, he needs to do something. He has to perform. Well, yeah, he does.
I've got a husband who's an actor, and he gets crabby if he doesn't perform. So I can't imagine. So now Dylan and JoJo, so happy to welcome you to the show for the first time. And I'm thrilled that you guys are here. Is this your first time doing something with the Miracle Project?
I did some stuff with them when I was little, but this is my first big thing in the last few years.
And what's it like doing this with your brother and your sister? Is this more fun, or is it sometimes hard?
Well, we get along very well.
Very well.
Yeah, we've always wanted to do a show together.
And so you've been performing before, but you're now performing with the Miracle Project. Is that right?
Yeah.
Yes.
I've been doing a lot of musical theater on my own, and we both really enjoy it.
But this is the first time you're doing something together?
Yeah.
Yes.
It's very special.
Well, that's a reason to tune in just for that. Now, did you help each other to film the things together?
Yeah, we definitely helped each other. I mean, we both have different strengths and weaknesses.
JoJo's better at the music aspect. I'm better at like the technology and filming aspect.
So we would like film each other and help with like vocal warm-ups and stuff.
So this is a question for all of you. What was the hardest part of putting the show together during this quarantine? Elaine, do you want to go first?
Let's see, the hardest part for me, I mean, I've loved it. I mean, I love that I get to see them every week. I love their energy. I love getting to be with them. And like Dom has been an incredible leader. He's always bringing out the other students. I mean, he was going to be one of our assistants this year, and he's just naturally been doing it. Seeing everybody and the helpfulness that they've been for each other. The hardest part, I guess, is, we want to hug each other. I think that's it. But we feel each other's hearts. And I think that's been the hardest part for me, learning technology, but I'm good. I'm showing others now how to do it. I'm becoming an expert on Zoom.
I'm telling you, your editor clearly is genius. I love that trailer. Absolutely amazing. So Dom, what's been the hardest part for you of putting this together?
I feel like there's been two things that have been hard for this round. One is, not being there with all the people that you care about and hope that you get to see every day. The other is the recording, because it usually gets hot when you throw the blanket over your head.
And the reason why I'm asking in case anybody's wondering, the reason why I'm asking what was hard is because clearly you overcame it. And I think there are a lot of people who are watching who are faced with something that they feel like they can't do or something that's hard. And I just want them to see but you can, people overcome things every day. Michelle, what was the hardest part for you? Excuse me, Monique, I'm so sorry.
The filming, the technology, learning how to, when you have to film these things and they're in this large, what do you call it? I mean, large files, and you're trying to get them over on time, and the technology. But I can say I have learned a lot from it. Like Elaine, I'm expert now. I know how to Zoom. I know how to send and record and zoom in and zoom out, and we'll see how good we did.
And forgive me, because one of our viewers, Michelle, had just said, I'm looking forward to seeing this. And Kirsten had said, I set up a watch live party on my Facebook for my non-autistic community, which is wonderful. And so I was looking at her comment, but so I apologize, Monique.
No problem.
You and I know each other from way back when. Yes. I still have your fan from way back when. So every time I see her, I'm like, I've got your fan. And it's a beautiful fan. I need to get it back to you. So Dylan and Jojo, what's been the hardest for you? What's been the thing that you've overcome in doing this?
So for me, the hardest part was definitely having to be flexible and condensing the script for a different format. We had to cut out a bit of the content in order to make it fit into the video format versus the live action format.
Yes.
And I had to be flexible for that.
That's awesome.
It was very hard to adjust to doing video and the audio separately. Typically we just do it together. So there was a lot of adjustment to that. That was something I overcame. It was also hard when we were all in a group together. We could only do one thing at a time.
Yeah. But I love hearing all this, because you can hear, Elaine, how many skills have been built because of it having to be this way.
It's unbelievable. I mean, I have to do my filming for the behind the scenes, and I'm anxious about it, but they give me strength and hope, because what they have accomplished is really unbelievable. People would say it's impossible, and you guys, I'm so verklempt.
Yeah.
But I'm so proud of you and in awe of what they've done. I mean, they had to audio record songs. They had to, and then they had to visually move to the songs separately. Audio recorder, what Dom was referring to is they had to put a blanket over their head to create the space. Our music director had to compose to get all the rhythms, because what you're going to see and what you saw in the video, all of that was filmed. All of the songs were filmed one person at a time, and yet it looks like we were all in a room. So what they had to overcome, their flexibility, as Dylan was saying, the patience, the waiting, and that's the thing. And for your viewers, is this team, they're the Miracle Project company, and they've shown that you can when you put your mind to it, you can overcome challenges and do what people think is impossible, and do it with grace and dignity and the idea of teamwork and working for a higher good. And then one of the moms said something to me the other day. She said that because everybody trusted each other and they trusted the staff, that you were all able to just go along this ride with us. Do you feel that that was something that was important to you? Is that trust?
You guys, Dylan and JoJo and Dom, did you guys feel like the trust? Monique?
Yeah.
Absolutely.
Definitely.
Yeah. Somebody has written in something, and I'm going to love this, because it used to be in the pre-COVID world, we would have the Miracle Project on, and this is the point when everybody would be like, oh, we wish this was here. And we would say to people, it could be, you could just ask for Elaine to bring her team, and, she picks 2 places in the world every year. And, year by year, 2 more places have the Miracle Project, but, it's not everybody. A parent has written in and said, my daughter would love to take classes, but unfortunately we live in Hawaii. She loves to sing and dance. Well, here is one of the gifts of this crazy time. Tell them, Elaine, what they can do.
First of all, Hawaii, that's my favorite place. So hi. Fortunately, the positives of Zoom is that we are now holding all of our classes online. And we have people from around the country joining our classes. So we have all ages, all abilities, everything from social skills classes that use improvisation to rehearse for life, to musical theater classes where we are learning from classical and contemporary musicals and performing, to comedy improv, to songwriting, poetry. And then what you see here is the Miracle Project Company class. So, and we are really, we want you to join us, everybody. This is what's exciting.
Yeah.
We're able to offer these classes to everyone now.
Isn't that amazing?
We may continue that.
Well, I hope you do, at least a little bit when we're back to whatever the normal is. I hope that you continue it a little, because it gives other people opportunities. So even if you're in Hawaii, where would you go, Elaine? And we have people who've written in that they're watching in India.
Oh, wow.
And Bangalore, India. So where would they go if they wanted to take a class?
Yeah, same thing. Go to themiracleproject.org. And we have all our classes listed, but you could also just email. When you go to the site, you'll see there's something where you can contact us, and we'll get back to you. Just tell us a time zone, and we'll make sure we get back to you and sign you up.
There you go. And so, I asked what was the hardest thing. I now want to know, what's been the most amazing thing that you've learned during this particular production? Because you've all been doing different things with the Miracle Project, but what is this, the influencer taught all of you? Dom, you want to go first?
I think it's taught me how to use Zoom more better, just get around online instead of being out there.
Very cool. Dylan and JoJo, what's the best thing that you've gotten out of this?
So we mentioned that I've been writing a lot of it, and in the past, a few years ago, I would have never imagined writing anything more than a sentence. And now Influencer has inspired me to start working on my own projects.
There you go. There you go. JoJo, what about for you?
I think that doing all this has just I've met so many kind people through this, so many talented people. They've all been so nice. I'm just so happy to be part of the Miracle Project community.
Wonderful. And Monique, not just this production, but as a parent, what has it meant to you having Dom have the opportunity to be a part of the Miracle Project as a whole over the years? What has that meant for you?
As a whole, over the years, it's meant the world. They're a family to us. We've grown with them. And then the biggest thing that I think that came out of this particular production, I saw that they can overcome anything. You know, this was a very big thing, this pandemic, and very trying. And when they shut us all in, like that first 2 weeks was really, really stressful and trying. And when this Zoom thing came up and they had that first Zoom class, he didn't know how much he enjoyed it because it was new and he wanted to be there with them. But at the same time, he was seeing everybody and we hadn't seen anybody for like, what, 2 or 3 weeks. So they just became strong and they pulled through. And so I just think they can overcome anything. They can do anything they put their minds to.
What a great life lesson.
Beautiful.
What a great life lesson to give our kids. Okay, so again, tonight, the half-hour performance it's the world premiere. And what time is it happening, Elaine?
So we're going to open the doors at 4:50 Pacific time, which is Eastern time, 7:50, and Hawaii time, 3 hours difference. So yeah, I think it's like 1:50, and then the show will be starting promptly at 5:05. So we'll be promptly starting then, but come in early because you'll see photos and there'll be music and original music from one of our composers. And then we'll have a Q&A at the end. So there'll actually be, the show itself is a half hour and then there's a Q&A at the end. So, the whole thing will be about 45 minutes. And then on Sunday with sign language interpreter, the show starts at 4 p.m. Pacific time.
Now, are you also doing performances on Friday and Saturday?
We're not. We're doing
Thursday and Sunday.
Thursday and Sunday. And then down the road, and Shannon, when this happens, down the road, we will have it available on demand.
Fabulous.
But that's in the works.
I gotta say, we had to change how we do things here, but we couldn't do this before. We always wanted to do this and we couldn't do this before. And I watched a lot of different outlets, but I just want to say that, not to diss anybody, but we watched Saturday Night Live try to do what I think you guys have been successful at. I think you've done a better job at it than Saturday Night Live. So, and they had everything at their disposal. And I know you guys are often weaving things and going, I've got a barn, you've got drums, let's do a show.
And it's all done with our phones.
We've got a cell phone.
Yeah, you got a cell phone. You can make it happen.
May I quote you? May I say?
Sure, absolutely.
Okay. You guys remember this quote, okay? We heard it here. We did it better than Saturday Night Live. I think so too.
Absolutely. I'm just saying, and not by a little. I think by a mile. You did it better than Saturday Night Live. So congratulations. And if that doesn't show the world what our kids are capable of, then I don't know what would. So I'm so proud of all of you for the work that you have done. And I just we're running out of time, but I just want to give everybody a quick second to give a shout out to why the world should be watching tonight. So who wants to go first? I don't want to put anybody on the spot, but why should the world watch tonight? Why is this not to be missed? Elaine, do you want to go first?
The world needs to watch this tonight because it will fill you with joy, hope and a sense of the impossible is possible.
And we need some of that just about now, right? Dom, why do you think the world should watch this tonight?
The world should be watching tonight because we are showing that we are able to do anything, including a virtual show, even if we have to.
There we go. Monique?
I agree with Dom and Elaine, and I think that they should watch just to be a part of the history. This is history.
Absolutely. Dylan?
The world should be watching just because it'll be fun to watch.
Yeah, the world should watch to see that people with autism can be creative. They can be theatrical.
Wonderful. And some of our viewers are writing in and saying Miracle Project is an inspiration. And I think that that's absolutely true. And the mom of the daughter in Hawaii said, ooh, she did 2 clappy hands and she said, ooh, I will tell my daughter I'm so happy to hear about the online options. And she said, yay. So again, we've got just time, one more time, Elaine. Where do they need to go to get the tickets to be able to see tonight's performance?
themiracleproject.org.
Okay.
And that'll take you to our homepage, and then you'll see, the page of the influencer.
Great. And so you want to get tickets either for tonight for the premiere, and there's the talk back afterwards, the Q&A afterwards, or for Sunday's sensory friendly performance where there's going to be somebody signing and there'll be closed captioning. So it's the choice between those 2 performances now. And there's also a talk back on Sunday.
Yep. There'll also be a talk back with the actors on Sunday as well.
Wonderful. So that's not to be missed, you guys. All right. Well, I just want to thank all of you for taking time out of a very busy day to be with us, to share this important stuff. And thank you for being such a light on this planet in a time when we need all the lights we can find, right? Yeah. So
thank you.
See you guys shine tonight.
Thank you so much, Shannon. We love you. Thank you so much.
Thank you, Shannon.
Thank you. It's great to see you guys. So it's like so much fun. All right. I'm just going to finish out the show. You guys can stay or go, whatever you choose to do. I just want to remind everybody that tomorrow we're back here with Let's Talk Autism with Shannon and Nancy. Licensed marriage and family therapist Vince Redmond will be joining us then. And don't forget, we're inviting everyone to take part in the Joanne Lara virtual memorial that's happening on Saturday morning. That is on our Facebook right now. You do have to register for that so that you can get the code to get into the memorial on Saturday morning. But we're going to be back tomorrow with more of Autism Live, and Nancy Alspaugh-Jackson will be joining me. Until then, give your kiddos a hug from me and one for you too. Tune in tonight to see this wonderful show by the Miracle Project. Thanks, you guys, for being with us.
Thank you.
Bye-bye for now. Bye-bye.
You guys were awesome.
We're awesome.
Thank you, Shannon.
Thank you so much. Thanks, you guys. Wave goodbye to everybody.
Bye-bye. Cool.
You see my dad?
They can still see you.
Oh, okay.
Now we're seeing it, Trayvon.
The advice and opinions expressed by the host of Autism Live and her guests are meant solely as suggestion and should not be in any way construed as child-specific advice. The Center for Autism and Related Disorders advises working with a board-certified behavior analyst who has experience with autism before starting any intensive behavioral intervention. Any choices you make in determining your child's treatment are completely at your own discretion.
morning.
Good morning, Shannon.
Good morning and welcome all of you to Let's Talk Autism with Shannon and Nancy. I'm Shannon Penrod.
And I'm Nancy Alspaugh Jackson. Hey, we are kind of matching. You mentioned that.
We said but I want to bring up, because I have a little visitor who's here with me, and he was so quiet. I did a 2-hour. I did a 2-hour talk this morning, and he was so quiet. He's here in the studio with me.
I have mine too somewhere.
This is Cheese, and he's
Hi,
saying
Cheese.
hello. So he just came over. He got a drink, which you could hear during the opening, and then he decided to come over and give me a foot lick because he's a foot licker. He's a foot licker from way back when. So this is Cheese. I know just a minute ago, when we were getting ready, I saw a big snout in the corner of your screen.
Right, that was Casey. Casey.
Oh, Casey! It looked like a big snout. Casey's
No,
just
that's because she was close up to the screen.
Oh, I see. I see.
I don't know where she jumped off to. She's around here somewhere.
Well, you're looking lovely today. You look all rock star today.
Oh, wow. Thank you.
You do. And we just want everybody to know we're gonna be with you live for the next hour. And we got a lot of stuff that we're going to talk about, including some in the news, although my in the news has not arrived yet. But we also have a great guest that's joining us today, a regular on the show. Vince Redmond is going to be with us in a few minutes. He's a licensed and marriage family therapist. So we love having the opportunity to talk with him. And today we're going to talk about, with Vince, about the things that are hard to talk about with our kids, which there's a lot of things that are hard to talk about with our kids, aren't there, Nancy?
Definitely. A lot of topics that are difficult subjects to broach. And, we can use Vince's advice on how to get into some of those.
And the reason why I suggested that we do that this week is that I've had a lot of emails this week in particular about, how do I talk to my teenage child about their diagnosis? We want to disclose, we have not used the A word, and we want to use the A word and make sure that it goes well. I'm having my news arrive. Thank you very much. Appreciate you. Thank you, kind sir.
That would be your husband? I
have production assistants that yes, because I can't print. And so my son will print and my husband will deliver it, which is very fun. But yeah, so we've had several people who've written and asked, how do I tell my child on the spectrum that they're on the spectrum? But we've also had a lot of people. I want to remind everybody that tomorrow we're having the virtual memorial. We're hosting it. Autism Live and Card together, we're hosting it tomorrow. So please register. You do have to register in order to get the password to get into the meeting, but it's free and everybody is welcome.
Didn't mention it's for Joanne Laura.
Oh my gosh, how did I leave that out? It's for Joanne Laura, tomorrow, the virtual memorial. And we're encouraging people to come, and if you feel it's appropriate to bring your kiddo, if your kiddo knew Joanne and was a student, we think it's absolutely appropriate material for them, as far as I'm aware. And but many people have written and said, I'm having a hard time explaining that they're not going to be able to see Joanne anymore. As well as other people who didn't know Joanne writing in because there's been a death in the family recently. And they don't know how to explain COVID, and that some people die from COVID, but you don't automatically die from COVID. So we've had a lot of people writing in saying, I don't know how to have these tough conversations. So I thought it would be worth our while to have Vince address that with us and with the folks that are watching. But it occurs to me, Nancy, I haven't said that, excuse me, the show is meant to be interactive. We want to hear your thoughts and feelings and questions and concerns, not just for Vince, but also for Nancy and myself. But you can also write in questions that we can be ferrying to experts on a different day. But there are lots of different ways to connect. Right now, you might be watching us live on YouTube, on Periscope, on Twitter, or on our homepage, or on Facebook Live. You can watch us live in all of those places. We are Monday through Friday live right now, which has just been so much fun. And if you want to watch us later on, if the live hour is not conducive to your work schedule, we are still available in all those places later on, recorded. But we are also a free download, a free podcast on iTunes, on Deezer, on Spotify, and on iHeartRadio. So all of those places. But don't forget, autism-live.com is a great place to go so that you can look at all of the videos that we've ever done. They're archived very neatly in different categories so that you can search by a topic or a title or a person and be able to find some great interviews that we've done over the last 8.5 years. So please, partake however suits you. But Nancy,
you've been doing the show for 8.5 years?
Yeah.
Really? I didn't realize it's been that long.
Well, and so you started with us doing this like 6 months in. So yeah.
Yeah. Wow,
Yeah,
that's amazing.
8 years. 8 years that you and I have been doing this, Nancy.
Wow, that's amazing.
So, and at some point, hi Gamal. At some point we should, because you know what they do with presidents. You know how 8 years ages a president. At some point we should pictures up of us when we started. Of course, people don't have to go far. The opener still shows me 8 years ago.
Right.
And I look like a different person in a different era. I look like the difference between being, my daughter and being my grandparent. That's how it's all, right. Aw, Cheese, good doggy. Cheese is a good doggy. Thank you for writing that in. Okay. So, yeah, you didn't realize it had been 8 years?
No, I sure didn't.
A lot of water's gone under this bridge, Nancy.
Yep, sure has.
I mean, come on, it's much different than it was 8 years ago. But we keep on ticking. So there are 8 years worth of videos to go back and look at and see if you like what you see. And there's got to be. And Amanda says, "Yep, I've been watching since my son was 3." Amanda, I can't, like you said yesterday that you wanted to be, I can't, we have not met. Why do I feel like we have met? I thought that we had met, Amanda, have we not? And if we haven't, we got to work that out. I mean, not during social distancing, but at some point we got to work that out. I'm not usually in hiding. I just am in hiding during this period of time. But anyway, we're excited to be here with you. We usually start our Let's Talk Autism with some news. You ready to do some news, Nancy?
Yeah, let me look my news up here.
Okay, so our first story is about the National Institute for Health, that they are letting us know. And I don't know why this just came back up now, because it's not new news, but I had not seen it before. And I thought that it was really interesting that in late 2019, they decided to give grants, $19 million.
That's a lot of money.
That's a lot of money. And that they decided to give the grants specifically to, I think it's 6 different organizations for studies about early detection and treatment of children with autism spectrum disorder. Because early detection and early treatment are a great way to optimize outcomes.
Yeah.
So, and I can hear a bunch of people screaming and going, yeah, but what if you miss that window? But in the future, wouldn't we all like, I mean, Nancy, I would give anything to have back the 6 months where we weren't attempting to do anything because we didn't know that our child had autism. Like I would just love, and then there was 6 months where a pediatrician should have diagnosed him, but didn't. From the first time that I went to the pediatrician, said, I think something's going on. There was 6 months until when I got the diagnosis. And then it was 6 months from when I got the diagnosis to when we started ABA. I would like to have that year back.
Well, I had 2 years wasted.
And I know there are people watching who have had 10 years wasted.
Mm-hmm, mm-hmm.
So, and as much as we want to focus on where we are now, and I think that's super important, we also want to leave a legacy that it's not the same way for a family down the road. So 6 different ways that they have granted money to, and I kind of wanted to just take a second and go, it's 7. I kind of wanted to just go through the different studies because I thought it was fascinating.
Mm-hmm.
So do you want to go every other one? Do you have that same page?
Yeah, I have the same page.
Okay, so do you want to take the first one, the community viable?
Yeah, the grants awarded include community viable screening for ASD in 9 9-month-old infants using quantitative eye tracking assays of social visual engagement.
Isn't that amazing? Like to be able to use eye tracking to figure out, I think.
In this study, researchers will measure the ability of an eye tracking based assessment of social visual engagement performed during children's 9-month well child visits to screen for ASD and other actionable developmental delays.
These give me hope. So the next one is validation of social communication checkup and autism risk indicator in the first year of life. And this will be out of Florida State University. The goal of this study is to validate the effectiveness of a new automated online screening tool, which is called the Social Communication Checkup. So it's called the SOCO, to screen for communication delay and autism at well child visits at 9, 12, 15, 18, 21, and 24 months of age. So they're going to do it and they're going to see how accurate it is. Because when our kids were diagnosed, they were supposed to be either the CARS or the MCHAT that was supposed to be done, I think, when they were 2 years old. And already that's like late. And then good luck if it actually happened. So I like that one. You want to take the next one?
Yeah, novel approaches to infant screening for ASD in pediatric primary care. The overall goal of this project is to develop and validate a novel screening tool called Sense to Know for use in a primary care setting. This tool identifies risk for ASD in infants based on patterns of attention, orienting, affect, vocalizations, and motor behavior.
Very good. Next one is neonatal cry acoustics and neurobehavioral characteristics as early markers of risk for autism spectrum disorder. This is out of Rhode Island. The project seeks to identify children at risk for autism in infancy by developing and validating a novel tool/process that analyzes features of crying and neurobehavior that preliminary evidence has shown may be atypical in infants at risk for autism. You know how, like, right around when our kids were little, Nancy, they had that thing where they came out and they identified that kids don't just cry, they have very specific cries, like one cry for when they're hungry. Well, now seeing that if these things are different, that it could be an at-risk thing for a diagnosis of autism. Go ahead, you want to take the next one?
Novel video-based approaches for detection of autism risk in the first year of life. In this study, the researchers aim to investigate and validate the video-referenced infant rating system for autism, a brief web-based instrument that utilizes video depictions rather than written descriptions of behavior to detect signs of ASD.
Interesting that a lot of these are trying to target younger than a year. I find that fascinating. Okay, the next one is novel computer vision-based assessment of infant caregiver synchrony as an early level 2 screening tool for autism. See, this is where they would have caught Gem. And this is out of Children's Hospital of Philadelphia, CHOP. This project tests a new method of screening for ASD in infancy by detecting alterations in the dynamic social coordination between infants and caregivers during brief play-based interactions. Very
Why do you think this is where they could have caught Gem?
Because Gem was typically developing and he was speaking and he was vocal way earlier than he should have been, but he could not, for instance, I was breastfeeding him and they tell you that when you're breastfeeding, you've got the baby there to make eye contact with the baby. But every time I would make eye contact with him, that was it. He would stop sucking. And we were concerned about his weight because he was losing weight. And eventually I was told, well, don't make eye contact with him. Let him just feed and make eye contact with him other places. But we discovered that there was something about, you know, when I'm speaking, he still has a hard time. Like I said or did something the other day and like for him, it's just different. The sound of my voice grates on him. So he just has a harder time. And I don't know whether it's because he had the voice in the womb or I'm just so entrancing, but it's like he can't listen to me and do other things. So And I would say to them, why can't he suckle and look at me? Doesn't that seem odd? And they were like, no, it's fine. It's nothing. Just don't worry about it. Let him eat. But it was a thing. It was a thing. Okay. So you want to do the last one?
Yeah, development of a telehealth screener and assessment for infants at risk for ASD in diverse communities. The goal of this project is to develop a telehealth screener to assess infant early ASD symptoms that will improve families' access to specialized screening and decrease the significant wait time for an expert evaluation.
Because we are hearing every day about people who are waiting to get diagnoses. We've got folks who are saying hi from Egypt. And somebody said that we still look great, Nancy.
Oh, thank you. That's so kind of you.
And somebody else says, I lost a year from when testing was started to when we started treatment. Yeah. I really honestly think that it's funny, this morning I was just doing a 2-hour talk for people who are just getting into the field. And I was saying, you know, I feel like it was such a hard thing getting started when we got started. And I don't feel like there's been any improvement in that in 16 years. And
I know, and I wonder why that is.
Well, I have my theories about it. I think part of it is that it's convenient for insurance, because if it takes you 3 months to get started, then that's 3 months that you didn't rack up any bills. But that's the wrong way to look at it. If insurance is looking at it that way, sometimes it's not that insurance is evil. It's just that, you know, it comes with a whole lot of paperwork. They're a paper mill, insurance.
Yeah.
We have another person who's writing and saying hi from India. I love that. Thank you, guys.
Shannon,
so glad that you're here.
did you go through regional center when you first had Jim diagnosed?
You know, we went first and got a private diagnosis, and then went to regional center to corroborate, which is not the way that everybody does it. But I didn't know that. I called regional center on the first day, and they were like, well, we'll have somebody call to do a phone assessment with you. But I think somebody said to me, this would be much easier if you just already had a diagnosis. And fortunately, we were with Kaiser, and with Kaiser, you know, it was part of our plan that we had access to developmental pediatricians. So it didn't cost me anything. For a lot of people, it's like this big cost thing. But for us, it was the most cost effective thing for us was to get the diagnosis, and it was actually faster. It took us 3.5 months to get the appointment with Kaiser. And I might've paid a copay of $20 for our assessment. And, you know, there are people who are paying $5,000 and waiting 2 years for an assessment. So, you know, I really lucked out. But then we went to the regional center, and everybody was afraid that we weren't going to get corroboration from the regional center. And the guy was like, oh no, this kid definitely has autism. So what about you? Did you start with the regional center, or did you go private?
Yeah, did not start with the regional center, started with a private clinic that did an assessment and said that he may be on the autism spectrum. I wasn't satisfied with what they were telling me. Went to the school district because he had just turned 3, and they sent a psychologist to evaluate him, and he was diagnosed with PDD-NOS, pervasive developmental disorder, nonspecific. And that school psychologist erroneously told me that regional center covered everything that was not educational. She said things like, oh my God, she said things like gymnastics and, you know, leisure activities. And so I didn't go to regional center until he was 4, and then he was diagnosed with autism. And then I heard about CARD, and it took about 9 months to get CARD services. Yeah. And we paid privately in the beginning. So I lost 2 years.
Yeah. And, you know, I think for the parents that are out there watching, you know, it's hard to put those years down. Mm-hmm. Like we revisit them like an old wound, right? Like an old bruise.
Right.
And sure, like in the middle of the night, there's always times when I go, where would we be if we'd been able to start a year earlier? Like where would we be? Now, the better that Jen does, the less I focus on that. But there were years where that was my every waking moment was we lost a year. We
It's
lost a year.
my every waking moment.
And I think it is for a lot of people, Nancy. And I think, you know, I was saying this morning to this group that I was talking to, I said, you know, I'm really lucky in so many different ways. But one of the ways that I got luckiest quickest was that I for a long time, I was in the why does my child have autism? Like what happened? And there was a day when I was like, I don't know why. And I don't know if I'm ever going to get to know why. And so I'm going to stop. I'm going to retire from that debate society. And I'm going to just deal with what can I do about it now? Because it was making me full on crazy. And I feel like a lot of people are function in that space of still trying to figure out why. And I always, like, I don't want to say that I don't think that that's fruitful. I think somebody's got to look at that, right? I just knew I couldn't do it and do what I needed to do. But I feel bad for parents that are stuck in any other moment than this one. I understand it. But it's like, no matter what I do now, I'm never going to get that year back. I can work on it so that somebody else doesn't get it. And this morning I was sort of feeling that call to action, like we need to do something about that. We need to take up that mantle for the families, but I have to stop beating myself up about it. Do you feel that way too, Nancy?
Yes, I definitely feel that way. The shoulda, woulda, coulda plays a strong role. I mean, when I say I lost 2 years, I really lost 3 years because he could have been diagnosed at 2. And that was a year spent in denial and just not dealing with it from 2 to 3. And then, of course, I covered what 3 to almost 5 was like, and the running around of getting the proper treatment. First, it's the runaround of getting the diagnosis. Then it's the runaround of getting the correct interventions. So,
well, and even then you don't arrive. Then it's still like trying to get to it's always trying to get to the next thing. You know, there's no arrival.
Right.
Things get better when you've got services in place because you have more hope because you can see your child progressing, but it's not like you get to go, whoo, okay. Hey, I'm going to let Vince in. For some reason, I have the ability to do that today. And I'm going to let him in. We didn't get through all of the news, but I think that this is an important conversation.
We can go back to the news.
Yeah, we absolutely can. But I think it's an important conversation for Vince to be a part of. But Vince, are you there? Do you want to unmute? Hey.
I am.
There is Vince Redmond. And I want to remind everybody, Vince is a licensed marriage and family therapist, but he has sort of like extra asterisks after his name because Vince started out as a behavioral therapist doing ABA. So he has, 2 decades of experience working in the field of ABA?
Almost 3, unfortunately. I'm
unfortunately?
dating myself, unfortunately, because that's dating myself.
We were talking about that earlier, that we've been doing the show for 8 years. We couldn't believe it.
Wow, that's true. Wow.
Yeah.
It goes by fast, huh?
It does. It does. And I just want to say, somebody wrote in and said, I've been watching you ladies for years. Our son is 8 now. I can't tell you how much you've helped our family throughout the years. I love that. And somebody else says, I'm with you, Shannon. So to fill you in, Vince, what we were talking about is that the NIH has given a bunch of grants to try to get to early diagnosis to 7 different areas that they're going to try to get to focus on potentially getting diagnoses before a year. And we were both saying that it weighs on us how much time. For me, it was a year from when I believe he could have been diagnosed to when he started services. And from time to time, I think about that year. Nancy was saying for her that it's somewhere between 2 and 3 years.
3 years, yeah.
Wow.
And we know that there are people with us that, I know parents that it's more than a decade. And how we grieve that time and we kind of beat ourselves up sometimes over that time. I made the decision that I had to stop thinking about why he had autism and what I did wrong so that I could be in the moment. And one of our viewers said, I'm with you, Shannon. I had to get away from why and what level of autism. I moved on to who cares. I need to help him now. I need to learn everything I can. I need to just move forward. And that's where I got myself to. That doesn't mean I was there every day, but that's where that's the lane I tried to stay in. Because, and I'll be honest with you, it wasn't because I like had it figured out or anything. I made that choice because otherwise I was going to lose my mind. And I did have a nervous breakdown because I was like, I'm screwing this up. And, I couldn't leave the house, whatever. And to get back on track, I had to stay in the present. So it wasn't some great evolved, oh, look at Shannon, she knows what she's doing. It was sheer desperation.
Right.
But Nancy, you were saying that sometimes you still struggle with the why.
I do. I think because of where Wyatt is now, I mean, he's still firmly on the autism spectrum. And, for me, he didn't make the gains that I had hoped he would. And so I tend to go back a lot to if only. And it does drive you crazy. I try to avoid going there, but it's hard not to go there sometimes. To replay the past and replay why wasn't I more in tune, or why didn't I do this or take that road. But, we take the road we take, and we've got to, like you said, get a handle on it and look to the future and look to the present. It doesn't do any good to go back and beat yourself up. Beating yourself up does no good whatsoever.
Isn't it funny, Vince? I hear Nancy saying this, and I know that I have had this conversation with myself where I'm like, why didn't I know to do X, Y, and Z on this day? And I will talk very harshly with myself about that now. And I will say, you're not going back, you're not doing that again. Make sure you do. But I will speak very harshly to myself. And I hear Nancy say that, and I'm like, gosh, Nancy, like, what were you supposed to be, like some medical expert on like you'd never had a child with autism before? Like, how were you supposed to know? There were no billboards. Nobody was saying anything. Like, how on earth would you have? I'm much kinder when I hear somebody else saying it. And I know you, Nancy, when we've been around a young mom who's like saying that, and like, I should have known a year ago, you're like, oh, honey, cut yourself some slack.
Mm-hmm.
Why do we do that, Vince? Why do we beat up on ourselves? But we would say to somebody else, no, that's like, nobody would have known.
Because it's our kids. We're emotionally involved. It's our parental responsibility to make sure that we do everything we can to make them okay, even unrealistically, right?
Yeah.
The first thing that I was thinking of when I was thinking of you two, and in how you're how you were feeling when the kids were diagnosed compared to, even now when you start thinking back, right? Remember, we have a lot more knowledge now.
Yeah.
And you're putting the lens of who you are now on the lens who you were 14, 15 years ago, right?
Yeah.
Completely different ladies, completely different mothers, completely different situations. We didn't have the training, the expertise, the amount of exposure, amount of professionals that are even trained now back then. So you were getting a lot more flooded at that point with contradictory information than now, right? Doctors that didn't believe it, doctors that were saying he'll grow out of it, school districts that said, no, we got this taken care of, and so forth. I think there's still some of that nowadays, but not nearly as much as it was, 15, 18 years ago when your boys were very small, when they were getting diagnosed, right? So sometimes I think we inadvertently, and we don't do this by thought, we're applying what we know now and asking, why didn't we know that then? And that's not fair. That's not fair to yourselves, because A, it wasn't there. It wasn't present. You didn't have the 12 to 18 years of now experience, knowledge in education. So like you said, we're doing ourselves a disservice when we use the lens we have now to critique who we were back then, because it's really it's apples and oranges at that point. But in our heart, it's because we feel that if we would have done something different, there would be a different result. And then we all know logically that's not true. It doesn't, you know, there's no crystal ball, but emotionally we're always, and we still will, that will never change, continue to do things for our kids in hopes that it's for their betterment, that it's going to help them. It's going to keep them safe. It's going to keep them, you know, more adaptive, you know, more connected with everybody around them. So I think we have to look, you know, coming from an outside look, we have to look at, you know, what lens are we looking through, and is that fair to ourselves, right?
Yeah. I love, is it Maya Angelou that had the phrase about, you know, we did what we did when we knew what we knew, and when we knew better, we did better.
Yeah.
And I think that that's very true. I want to read some of the things that people are writing in. The mom who said that, you know, she had to be able to move on and move forward. She said, but to you, Nancy, I have days of my own where I have meltdowns, but I can't stay there. She just wanted you to know that.
Right.
And then somebody else said, I have no issues blaming the doctors. They didn't even mention the word ABA. And I think we've heard those stories, right? And then another person who in reference to the NIH, because if they can get it to where they can diagnose before a year, it would be great, right? And they said, wow, that would have been amazing. Our son was diagnosed at 2, and we had to push hard for that. At 1, he would have made so many more gains, brain development strongest in the first 3 years. And I don't want you to know, most of us are like, look at you, you got
Right.
to diagnose at 2. You're like hitting it out of the park. Like, that's amazing. Because right now, you know, it's funny, we were just talking about this morning, that a couple of years ago, the average age of a child on the autism spectrum when they were diagnosed was age 7. And then a couple of months ago, Dr. Granpeesheh said to me on the show, she said, do you know what the average age is for when? And I said, well, it used to be 7. And she said, no, it's 4.5. And I was like, wow, that's an improvement. And she said, don't you dare celebrate that. 4.5 is terrible. We need to get that closer to 2. So you're doing amazing.
2 is fantastic, because that is when you can really see the longevity of the delays, right? I think everyone can say that at about 1 or just after 1, we might be able to start seeing some delays, but yet it's not necessarily fluid yet. We haven't had too much developmental milestones to get to be able to record it and see. But like you were saying, in the new studies, we're starting to come up with more milestones, different markers to look at, different, you know, checkpoints. But yeah, 2, in my experience now, I'm, you know, speaking of 27 years of experience, I would say 2 is a champion. That is fantastic.
We know for sure that 2 is a great place.
We're not that far behind. We got a lot of great treatment technologies, understanding, abilities and treatments to be able to really jump on that right away.
Get that ABA and get your full prescription. Force them to give you 40 hours at 2, because that's the ticket.
Absolutely.
Now, this wasn't even the topic, but we just got, you know, we obviously, we tripped onto something that was, But our topic we invited you this morning to talk about when we need to have the tough conversations with our kids, and there's lots of tough conversations. And the reason why I asked for this is because we've had a lot of emails in the last few weeks. I can think of 2 emails where people they said, you know, we've got teenagers and we need to have the talk with them about their diagnosis. And that's a tough conversation. So and then there's other conversations that are hard too that have come up. We just have had a lot of mail about that. So should we start with that, you guys, about how do we talk about diagnosis with our kiddos?
Yeah, that's a good one.
Sure. For me, the first thing is making sure that the parents are on the same page, right? It's first communicating with each other. What are the expectations? What do we want to? What information do we want to want them to know, right? It's not just about a label. It's not just about a name, right? Yeah, we can say, okay, you're autistic, but that means nothing, right? There's no understanding to that. So parents and caregivers, and this could go to some extended family too, maybe older siblings, grandparents, aunts and uncles, whoever are really caregiving and overseeing, because we want the message to be consistent. We want the information to be consistent. And then now once we have that consistency, and we all understand kind of what we want them to understand, what knowledge we want them to know, then it's good to start talking to them about it. Sitting down. This isn't a one-time sit down, here's your talk, we're done, right? This is going to come over time. Sitting down, asking them, do you have any questions? First, open up, ask them, because they probably do. They probably do. Ask for questions. Have you noticed anything? You're in high school now. Do you notice anything different about the kids from high school than middle school? See if they start identifying differences. See if they start bringing up social concerns. See if they start bringing up different, maybe processing issues that they may be having. High school is very fast. Lots of knowledge, lots of things getting thrown at you 100 miles an hour. They're going to class every 50 minutes, right? It's very fast paced. Now you have your building blocks, right? Now you have your blocks that you can address separately, right? You can talk about learning, you can talk about socials, you can talk about processing, you can talk about self-confidence. All of that will lead up to, well, we learn differently, we have different, abilities, we have different successes, strengths and weaknesses. And then I think it's a personal choice in each family if they actually want to use the formal diagnosis as the information to tell them, or do they stick to talking about each individual block, each individual area of concern, I wouldn't say concern, but an area that they've identified as something that they're noticing in themselves different than their peers, and going from there, right? So there's really no one approach fits all, but for me, it's my recommendations are take it slow, ask questions, right, of the kids, see what they notice, make sure that we have agreement across caregivers on what the approach is going to be, because if they ask me one thing or talk to me about one thing, maybe they're going to talk to my father, grandpa, and ask a different question. Well, grandpa needs to know what we're doing, right? What to say, what is our approach going to be? If he asks Aunt Mary, am I different than other kids? Well, Aunt Mary now will have had, we've all talked about what to talk about, and she can turn around and say, well, what do you mean you're different? Give me an example. And we're back to question and then an answer. So again, lots of communication, not just communication directly with our child, but communication across all the caregivers that will be answering the same questions.
So I'm curious, Nancy, like when was the first time you guys talked to Wyatt and used the word autism? When did you have that talk?
It was when he was about 10, I believe, or 11, that I was trying to explain to him why he had therapists. He was going through a phase then of, I don't want teachers, we called them anymore, and really rebelling against having ABA. And I told him he needed extra help because he was like, why do I have to have teachers? And I said, you need extra help because you have something called autism, which means that you need a little help in some of these areas. It doesn't mean you're less than, it just means you're different than the way some people are. And so I kind of came at it from that perspective.
We were a little bit different. I had heard of a, right after Jem was diagnosed, I heard of someone who had waited to tell their child, and he was like 4, so he was little, and one of the other kids at school told him with very negative language, and that just sent me spinning, right? And I was determined that I was going to fill him with we were going to normalize that word, and we were going to normalize it as something that's spectacular and like the difference between having blonde hair or brown hair. And that and that we were going to do that so that by the time he went to school, that he was going to be sort of Teflon to anything that anybody would say. You know, very idealistic of me and naive. But so we started using the words when he was 2.5. And then I remember by the time he was 3, we loved American Idol and watched American Idol. And I don't know whether it was when he was 3 or 4-ish, or right around there was when James Durbin was on American Idol. And every time James Durbin would be on, I would say, oh, look, there's James. James has the same name as you. And look, he's so talented. Don't we love? And we danced to James Durbin. And I would go, James is so fabulous. And James is a good singer and he plays the piano, and James has autism, just like you. Isn't that awesome? You have a lot of things in common with James. And, you know, that was just my thing constantly. So when we finally got to meet James Durbin, you know, Nancy, I just like sobbed and I was like, I used you as the role model for my son for a long time.
We had him on this show about 7 years ago.
Yeah. But it was a thing, you know, it was like, because you know what I remember? I remember Whoopi Goldberg talking about the fact that when she was a little girl, she saw Lieutenant Uhura on Star Trek. And she was like, she is like me and I am like her, and everything she can do, I can do. And I wanted that same thing for my son. I wanted him to see people who were capable and respected and revered. And autism was just a part of, so by the time he went to kindergarten, we had written a children's, like a social story, like you had a social story for Wyatt. We had one that was just about, and it's called My Name is Jem and I Have Autism. And it's a whole thing of, I have a backpack and I have parents and I have a video game and I have a tambourine and I have autism. And it's just one of the many things that I have. And sometimes people with autism are young and sometimes they're old, and sometimes they can talk and sometimes they can't. And it's just a thing. So I didn't have to have that big talk. I sort of bypassed it like really early. So I've loved all this information though for parents, Vince, about, you know, making sure that you have agreement about it. But I think it's super important to that thing that you were talking about. It's just a difference. It's not a less than, it's not a more than, it's not a get out of literally jail free card. It's, you know, and then the person who explained it to me and said, it's the difference between a Mac and a PC. Right.
That's a great analogy.
Yeah. And that you can make a Mac do the things that PCs do with apps. But they are still processing things in a different way. So I
love it. I love that.
Yeah.
And I think that's and again, looking at the other spectrum or the other end, right? I was talking about the older kids, you know, that might just be becoming aware that there's differences, to instituting this very early on throughout their entire treatment plan, which I think is wonderful. The way both of you guys were doing it is great. Again, it wasn't a one-time, I did my checklist, I told him about it, I'm done. Right? This is an ongoing acceptance, identification, not a problem, you know, and you have these abilities and powers and uniquenesses that make you stronger than the next, you know, different than the next, awesomer than the next, and, you know, and so forth. And that is a constant learning opportunity for them and self-esteem raising opportunity for them throughout their entire treatment plan. I think that's wonderful.
I just want to address some of the things that people are writing in, and some of it is about the previous conversation that we were having. One person who I just adore said, I had to do my own research, and that is when I found Autism Live, Skills, Shannon, Dr. Adele, Dr. Nadowski, Dr. Tarbox, and of course, Dr. Granpeesheh. And then I went to work, and now I'm an RBT, and eventually I will get my BCABA. I can't promise anything further than that now with 3 special needs kids, but we're sending you love and hugs because you're
unbelievable.
Isn't that amazing?
That's fantastic.
Yeah. And another person who said, I was fighting with specialists for around 4 to 5 years for my daughter to be diagnosed because according to them, she was copying her brother. even when I knew they didn't interact. My daughter was struggling in school, even getting suspended. When she was finally diagnosed, I struggled with blaming myself and blaming the doctors. I wasted one more year, but now she's thriving, AB on a roll, and now I'm looking forward to the future. And in my son's case, ABA has been a great improvement for him. I do struggle a lot, but lately our good SJ days, I don't know what that means. Our good I don't know what that means, exceed the days we struggle, and he was diagnosed at 2. So sending you a hug. Disha says, hi, Shannon. And she says, I'm continuously talking to my son, but he is not understanding things. He doesn't know the concept of yes and no. What can we do in such a case? He's 3.7 years old. Vince, do you, I mean, I'm sure Nancy and I would recommend ABA.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah. Oh, absolutely. Well, of course. I mean, if we're talking about talking to him about his differences, or are we talking about the type, what services, resources that they should,
that's
into?
Interesting. I because she goes on to say he doesn't know the concept of yes and no. I think it's just a general question that she talks to him and he doesn't seem to understand things, that the receptive language isn't there. Right. But in either case, if you've got somebody who's 3.5 and doesn't know the concept of yes and no, ABA can absolutely help there.
Absolutely. And help in many different ways, right? Going back to your receptive, expressive language, vocal, non-vocal, communicating. There's a lot of communication, language development, behavioral language development. That is absolutely something that ABA really, really strives on. I mean, our verbal behavior, curriculum across all ABA disciplines. I'm not just saying CARD in particular. Are aimed at functional language, functional understanding of language, functional usage of language, making sure that they understand how to ask for things, how to label things, how to interact with other people appropriately. That's something that starts at a very young age, right? And it's not too late, and it's something that actually it really should be addressed immediately.
Yeah. And for people who are watching and, maybe you're new to the show or you don't know ABA, we want to start out by telling you that a great place to go to start, near and dear to my heart, and I think to Nancy's heart as well, go to www.centerforautism.com and look under the locations tab, first of all, to see if CARD is available and has offices close to you. You will see that there's Vince, like 260 offices. So if you're in the United States, there might be an office that's close to you. If there isn't a CARD office that's close to you, I would encourage you to look for a quality ABA program that is close to you. You can just Google ABA for autism. You don't want just ABA, you want ABA for autism, and put the name of your city in. There are a couple of directories, like I think Autism Speaks, but it's not necessarily up to date. But I would recommend CARD first, and that's just a reality, because that's what my son had, and that's what I want you to have. But there are other good quality ABA providers that are out there as well. That's important. If you find that there isn't an ABA provider near you, because I know many of you are writing in from other countries and you may not have those resources available to you, I want to make sure that you know about a website called Skills for Autism. It's www.skillsforautism. And if you go there, it's the entire curriculum of what they do at CARD, and it's available. It's a subscription that you can be working on the same things with your children that Nancy and I had working with our kids. And if you want to know how to do those lessons, you want to get trained like the other mom who's saying that she's an RBT and going to be a BCA BA. I don't think I have the letters right, but you know what I'm trying to say.
You're right.
But there is a website where you can train online, and it's very inexpensive compared to anything educational, right? It's called ibehavioraltraining.com. It's the Institute for Behavioral Training. And you can actually do the coursework online to be a registered behavior technician or a board certified autism technician in about 40 hours. There's more to get the actual certificate offline, But I think the cost of it is, if you do the whole thing, it's right around $400. If you call them and tell them that you're friends with me and that you want the friends and family discount, I think it's a 10% discount they give you. So drop my name, because I love it when people learn. Learning is a great thing. But if you have something that isn't working, and something you see, a skill that you want your child to do, or a challenging behavior that your child is having that's preventing them and you from living your best life, please seek out ABA. That is the gold standard for treatment. And here in the United States, all 50 states have mandates now for insurance to cover it. So please get yourself that help. Now, we've got a few more minutes left. I can't believe that took that long, but that's important. We did have a lot of people writing in this week, Vince. Tomorrow, we're having the virtual memorial for our good friend, Joanne Lara. And we hope that everybody will join us at that. It's free and it's online, and everybody can come to that. We've had many parents writing in and saying they don't know how to explain death, and specifically Joanne's death, to her students, to their children, and asking, how do you explain this to our kids?
And I think a lot of that obviously has to do with their level of understanding of things, right? So the way we would talk to, say, a preschool or kindergarten to someone who's, to a young adult or a teen would be completely different. But I think the idea is talking about life cycles, right? How much, and also how connected to the person who's passed away as well, right? I mean, it might be completely different from a parent than from an extended family member or a neighbor or a friend that they don't have a real tight emotional connection to. But talking to them about life cycles, talking to them about the birth, living, dying, it's part of a life cycle. It's part of every living organism's life cycle. Using each family's individual religious beliefs is important, right? If you're getting support with this or your AB agency, make sure you talk to them about your religious beliefs. What do we believe? Do they go to heaven? Do they go to another place? Is there rebirth? Is there, we want to support your belief in your families to make sure that the child understands the religious connotations to death, right, or into rebirth. So there are a lot of different points. I'm kind of jumping around a little bit, but it is a very serious, subject that comes up, and it's going to continue to come up over different phases of their life. So we address it a little bit differently depending on what developmental stage they're in. But younger kids, we talk more about life cycles and permanency. The older kids, it's a little bit more of emotional. What are you going to miss? What good memories did you have? And looking at, having them process the actual grief that they would be feeling, as well as what would be something that they can do to celebrate that person. In like the memorial tomorrow is a great example. We're celebrating because they were great people. They loved everybody. And this is what we do. It's like a birthday party. We do that for people that are living. This is what we do when they pass. When we make it a positive experience for them, which will help them process their grief.
And that's so helpful, Vince. Thank you so much, because I know a lot of people have been asking for that. We're almost out of time, and we have a couple of more things. Michelle has written and said, have a safe week. Somebody said, I had to talk to my daughter about the diagnosis right after she was diagnosed at 7. Her classmates were calling her names like weird. And I do think that, unfortunately, the world, I think if we could do it any way we want to, it might be different, but the world is going to say things to your child about being different. And man, I want to change that, but that is a thing. But then really quickly, we
to some extent change the definition, change the power of that word.
Yes.
You're weird. I'm wonderfully weird.
Yeah.
It's fantastic.
Celebrate.
I'm not like that person. I am different. I am wonderful. I am wonderfully weird. And if we change the definition of that, It's not as powerful. It's not as painful as, you know, the other child might intend it to be, which means then it becomes non-functional and they'll stop doing it.
Thank you so much for that, Vince. And just as we get ready to part here, I want to say to Johanny, who's written in about a language thing, the word you're looking for is intraverbal. That's the word you're looking for. And I just want to remind you that I have offered to do a skills run through with you personally, one-to-one. All you have to do is email me, and I'm happy to set that up so that we can do that. Vince, I want to thank you. What's that?
I said, I love it. The official terms.
Yeah, she was like, I want to know what's the thing when, you know, and that's it. It's intraverbal. Intraverbal is what you're looking for. And there are lots of lessons in skills to help our kids get to intraverbal. And I see a lot of times that this is very typical, that students will learn things and they'll learn labels. And parents will write in and say to us, okay, so my child can label all these things, but we are not yet at conversation where they can take the words that they know and put them in a sentence. That's what you want, is you want to get them to intraverbals. So, but that can absolutely be worked on, and it's a phase, and all kids go through that, even ones who don't have autism. So that can be worked on. I want to thank both of you for being here, Nancy and Vince. And we didn't get through half of what we said we were going to talk about, but I think we talked about what was important today. Yeah. So that's always, you know, I'm like, well, let's do that. But thank you guys so much for being here. Vince, where is there a place that you like to give out to if people need to reach out to you? You don't have to.
Yeah, no, of course. They can email me at v.redmond, R-E-D-M-O-N-D, just my name, at centerforautism.com.
Wonderful. And if you need to get a hold of me other than through the chat, you can always reach me at s.penrod@autism-live.com. And if you need to get a hold of Nancy, send it to me and I'll send it to her.
Let's remind everybody about the memorial service tomorrow. It's a good way for kids to also process by seeing a celebration of Joanne Laura's life.
Yeah, and normally we would be meeting in person, but since that is impossible right now, not here in Southern California, we're having it virtually. Now, here's the benefit, is that everybody around the world can come to this virtual celebration of her life. It starts at 10:30 Pacific time, so that's 1:30 Eastern time. And then I know a lot of you are watching. I know that we talked about, we wanted to make sure, because she had a lot of friends and students in India. And so I believe that means that it's at 11 p.m. at night in India, but that's the only other time zone that I'm fairly certain of, because we were trying to hit a time where we could hit as many time zones as possible. At that time, and what happens is that you'll register, because there's a password to get in, there's no cost. But on our Facebook, you'll see there's a post, find the link where you go to register. You'll get an email, and in the email, there'll be a link and a password. That's what you need to get on. We will open the doors to the room 15 minutes beforehand so that everybody can come in and get a virtual seat. And we have some music that Joanne had picked out to play during that time. Then there will be a program that's approximately 45 to 50 minutes long. We've got some amazing people: Ed Asner, Joe Montaigne, Chuck Saffler, Dr. Temple Grandin, Dr. Stephen Shore, Dr. Granpeesheh. These are the people who are going to be speaking briefly, and a couple of musical performances, and some videos of pictures of Joanne's life, again with music that she chose, and one new song that was written for her by a Grammy-nominated artist that literally takes my breath away. Nancy's heard it. Did it not take your breath away?
Really
amazing.
An amazing song. What a tribute.
Right. And then at the very, so once the program is over, we're going to open it up to everybody, all the viewers, all the people that are there watching, and you'll have an opportunity to raise your hand and have your mic be made hot so that you can give a remembrance of Joanne. We're asking that those be 2 minutes or less, because we think that there will be a lot of people, and Traven and I are going to be, running the technical elements of it, and we're going to stay until everybody's had an opportunity to say, and that might take hours. But if your kiddo wants to say something, you just have to be patient, because I'm sure that there are going to be a lot of people who are going to want to say something, but we're going to be there and celebrating Joanne's life. We are thanking already the internet for working for tomorrow. I was told that that's what I needed to say instead of saying I hope it work saying thank you for good internet tomorrow. Thank you. We appreciate the good internet signal for everyone to be able to see all that we have planned for you to see and hear. It touches my heart greatly how much everybody has been on board and said, you know, what an amazing lady Joanne was, and we want to remember her. So that is tomorrow, 10:30 Pacific time. Please do the math where you are, but please register for it's a webinar format. So we're looking forward to being there with you. And I thank you guys for everything. And you guys have been amazing rocks for me in these last 2 weeks. Because I know Joanne was a really good friend of yours, Nancy, and Vince, you have been so helpful and supportive. I've really appreciated you.
Anytime.
All right, we're out of time. We're past time, but thank you guys. We're going to be back on Monday. Bonnie Yates, special education attorney, will be with us on Monday. And by the way, on Monday, I'm going to be on a radio show, Swathy's radio show. I can't pronounce her last name. Don't ask me to. But that's also posted on our page as well if you want to tune in to hear me be interviewed. I'm going to be on the other side of the table on Monday afternoon. All right. What's that?
I said a new seat for you.
Yeah, new seat for me to be on the other side. Watch, I'll end up asking her questions because I don't know how to do it.
Is that Swathy of jewelry fame?
Yes, Siri's mom. She has her own radio show. And
Swathy does or Siri?
Swathy has, the mom has her own radio show.
Right.
So, and I've been on it before, but it's been a while. So it's a big honor to be back on it. All right, you guys, we got to go, but we'll be back on Monday. Until then, we'll be back tomorrow. But until then, give your kiddos a hug from me and one for you too.
And yourself a hug from me. Bye-bye.
Absolutely. Bye-bye.
Thanks, guys.
Thanks, Shannon.